Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Society of Collegiate Journalists and Army Century Media's coverage of the 2018 midterm elections. I'm Logan Carney. Alongside me is my co-host, Michael Sciulli. Now, Michael, we've already had a couple races called so far, so why don't you let us in on what happened?
Well, Logan, let's head right to our election map to see what is going on there. We have a couple of races, like you just said, that have already been called. But in addition to that election map here, we're going to have plenty of insight there. And here we go. Right here, Tim Kaine winning in Virginia over Stewart with 51.69% of the vote. And right off the bat here, Logan, it's just 8 o'clock. Polls are really starting to close now, and we already have one in the books.
Yes, and another one we have in Vermont. Bernie Sanders winning big again in that one. As expected, Tim Kaine and Bernie Sanders both going ahead, and already a couple polls have closed, and we already know who a couple senators are going to be.
And there we have a look here of the Bernie Sanders victory, and it's really a huge margin of victory there for Sanders, 65.2% of the vote over Zupan. And really that one wasn't too close there, Logan.
Yes, now, Mike, now we're going to have plenty in store, though, for night on our whole broadcast, including former Libertarian candidate for Congress, Drew Miller, who's going to be with us the whole night. In addition to that, we have RMU student correspondent Dylan Gatos, and much more. You are not going to want to miss it.
Absolutely not, Logan. In the local Senate race is between incumbent Democrat Bob Casey and Republican challenger Lou Barletta. The ballot for this race also includes Green Party candidate Neil Gate and Libertarian candidate Dale Kearns. As for the results, Bob Casey is given a 96.9% chance by 538 to remain in office. He's being projected to get 54.9% of the vote, and Barletta being projected to receive 43.4% of the vote. And the remaining two candidates being projected the same 1.7% of the vote.
Now, the House, though, moving on, elections in PA are also very noteworthy, and arguably the most noteworthy is right here in Moon Township.
Definitely, Logan. And the race for PA's 17th Congressional District was redrawn after it was ruled that gerrymandering in the area was too favorable for the Republicans. So the district is the only election in 2018 that pits two incumbents head-to-head. We have Democrat Connor Lamb, who will be up against Republican Keith Rothfuss. Lamb has been representing PA's 18th district for only a few months after he took over the position after beating Republican candidate Rick Saccone and, of course, our guest on the night, the Libertarian candidate Drew Miller, in a special election back in March. As for Rothfuss, he's been representing PA's 12th district since 2013, and polling shows that Lamb is a heavy favorite heading into election night tonight with a double-digit lead in the polls.
As for the Pennsylvania governor race, on the ballot we have Republican Scott Wagner, who is challenging incumbent Democrat Tom Wolf. 538 is projecting that Tom Wolf will keep his office by receiving 56.7% of the vote share. They have him as a 99% chance to win. Scott Wagner is being projected to receive 41.3% of the vote, but is only given a 1% chance to win. As it is with every election, though, the stakes are high for both parties. All 435 House seats are up for election this year, as every 2 years is, as well as 35 Senate seats. There are also 36 governorships up for re-election this year as well. The Democrats are projected to take the House, which requires taking 218 total seats, but only 48 races are considered competitive, and Democrats will need to flip 24 to take the House.
As for the Senate, the Republicans currently hold a 51-49 advantage, and they are projected to keep it. The Democrats need to flip just 2 seats, but 26 of the 35 seats that are up for grabs are held by Democrats.
Like Michael just stated, the Senate is being projected to remain in control of the Republicans. 538 is giving them a 4 out of 5 chance to keep the Senate. In fact, they are saying that 51-49 is the most likely outcome in favor of the Republicans, with a 17.1% chance. One race to watch out for includes incumbent Republican Ted Cruz versus Democrat challenger Beto O'Rourke. Cruz is being projected to win with a 51.7% of the vote. But that being said, O'Rourke has raised $70 million, which is more than double of what Ted Cruz has raised. Another race to keep an eye on is in Florida, in which Democrat Bill Nelson is challenging Republican Rick Scott. Nelson is being projected by 538 to win that by getting a 51.6% share of the vote, and Rick Scott getting the remaining 48.6%. An even tighter race can be found in Nevada, though, as incumbent Republican Dean Heller is fighting a close race with Democrat Jackie Rosen. Right now, Rosen is being projected to win by just 1.1%. Our last race that we're going to highlight right now is in Missouri, in which incumbent Democrat Claire McCaskill is projected to win over Republican Josh Hawley by, again, 1.1%.
Well, Logan, and throughout the country, there are many close elections in the House of Representatives as well. 538 is giving the Democrats a 7 out of 8 chance of taking the House. And one of the closest elections is once again right here in the state of Pennsylvania. The 16th Congressional District is currently classified as a toss-up by Real Clear Politics. The race is between incumbent Republican Congressman Mike Kelly and his Democrat challenger Ronald D. Nicola. Throughout the entirety of the country, however, there are 194 seats leaning towards the Republican Party and 203 seats leaning in favor of the Democrats. 38 of the seats contested are classified as toss-ups. This according to Real Clear Politics. Like you stated earlier, Logan, 218 seats is the majority needed to take control of the House of Representatives. More key races to watch on this list include another PA race, PA's 10th district, in which pits Republican Scott Perry against Democrat George Scott. And then that race is also classified as a toss-up. And another toss-up is in Arizona's 1st district, which has incumbent Thomas O'Halloran up against Republican Wendy Rogers.
Yep, like you said, that race also a toss-up. But now we're going to go back to earlier today when our reporter and future anchor Gage Goulding had the chance to go to the polls and talk to the voters. Here's what they had to say about this year's midterm election.
And people across the country casted their ballot in the 2018 midterm election today. We visited 2 Moon Township locations and met up with residents after they voted.
It's really important, I would say, these days, especially with everything that's been going on, and then, you know, especially in Pittsburgh specifically. We just had that shooting like 2 weeks ago, so I feel like everybody should be coming out.
Tammy is a Moon Township resident, and she says we're taking our right to vote for granted because some countries fight for that same right.
I think it's for people that don't vote. I mean, there's countries that fight to have the right to vote.
As we were talking with Tammy, Michelle Newell, a candidate for the state representative in the 44th district, stopped by Moon Area High School to catch up with voters.
No, I think we're doing great. Our poll numbers are great. We're getting great responses on door, great responses here today. So I think it looks very good. I have a long history with Moon Township, a lot of, fond memories. My 2 nieces and nephew graduated from Moon High School, so it's an important community to me. Well, I think it's important because people need to get engaged. My own children started voting as soon as they turned 18, and I think it's a critical thing for people to get in the habit of voting, just like any habit. What we're seeing and what I'm hearing from polls is that we're actually having a turnout at a higher rate than the presidential elections. That's what we're hearing from the election judges.
For the SCJ Election Night coverage, I'm Gage Goulding.
Now we're sitting here with former Libertarian candidate Drew Miller to talk about the debates that happened, specifically the local debate between Tom Wolf and Scott Wagner. Drew, thank you for joining us.
Great, thank you for having me on.
Now, specifically about the debates, now they didn't use the traditional 3 full length, they just did 1 45-minute. Out of those 2, which one do you think benefited more?
You know, I think it might have been Tom Wolf when you come down to it. Number one, going into it, I think he had so much momentum behind him. I think it would have been really difficult for Scott Wagner to catch up. He would have needed, much more than just 45 minutes to try to take the edge over Tom Wolf. But the other thing is, too, is then, we see even after that debate, Scott Wagner came out with that YouTube video where he said he wanted to stop on Tom Wolf's face with golf cleats. I think he lost some support after that. I think people maybe saw him as unhinged. I think in the broader scheme of things, though, Pennsylvanians lost during that debate because there were 4 candidates on the ticket, and we only got to hear from 2. We didn't get to hear from the Libertarian candidate Ken Kronchek or the Green Party candidate Paul Glover. And I think in that regard, Pennsylvanians missed out. And in terms of even the lieutenant governor, think about this. This is supposed to be the year of the woman. And, it was only the Libertarians and the Green Party that put on 2 female candidates on the Libertarian ticket on a statewide ballot, and that was Kathleen Smith and Jocelyn Bauer-Bostick, who, by the way, is a person of color too, the only person of color on the statewide ballot. So I think in that regard, Pennsylvanians really missed out by not hearing from those particular individuals.
So as someone in yourself that has run on this Libertarian third-party candidate route, how difficult is it, or are there any extra challenges that go with getting on that debate stage?
Oh, definitely. It's extremely challenging. Well, to begin with, these third-party candidates, they have to have a day job in addition to doing this essentially on the side. You take a look at the Republicans and the Democrats, they have all the money behind them. Took a look at today at what kind of money the Libertarians and the Green parties are dealing with, and some of these candidates have between $400 and $2,000 tops. That's it. That's all they're dealing with. So it's really challenging for third-party candidates. And also, for whatever reason, the media has a blackout in terms of these candidates. They just don't want to hear from them for whatever reason. Now, it's interesting. Recently, there was going to be a debate with the people running for Senate, which is Bob Casey, Lou Barletta, obviously, but then we also have Dale Kearns and Neil Gale. Well, what happened was the League of Women Voters got behind them all. They promised that all of them would be on the debate stage. At the very last minute, the station out in Philadelphia told Dale Kearns and Neil Gale that they were not allowed to come to this debate. The League of Women Voters pulled their support from that debate to their credit. And so the debate went on with just, once again, the Republican and the Democrat. And I think in the larger scheme, Pennsylvanians lost.
Yeah, and now the debate had more than, controversies too, as opposed to just not including all the candidates on the ballot. For example, the moderator Alex Trebek, who a lot of people were unhappy with because of how he asked the questions, how he added stuff, and again he apologized for his poor performance. But so, what are some of the issues that you thought were left off the table by Trebek and not discussed fully enough during those debates, where the candidates didn't really get a chance to talk about?
I think that what I want to do is caution a lot of my friends who are Democrats, because the Democratic Party isn't as progressive as they think it is, and I think that is something that the Green Party and the Libertarian Party can offer voters. So, I really think that Alex Trebek didn't press the issue of drugs enough, in terms of the legalization of marijuana. People think that Tom Wolf is behind this. They think that he wants to legalize marijuana, but actually he said recently that he's not ready to do so. Really, it's only the Libertarian Party and the Green Party that's ready to do that. And I think that was a big issue that was really missed by Alex Trebek. I think in the long run, it was a mistake to have Alex Trebek as the moderator. I think it took away from the two candidates. He tried to put the spotlight on himself, and we really wanted to just hear from the two candidates. We didn't get the opportunity to do that.
So back on the front of drugs, Tom Wolf likes to tout his record against opioid addiction in the United States, or in the state, and his record on that. But Wagner went after this, saying that Wolf didn't do enough. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that both of them have it wrong. I think that the problem is that what they're trying to both do is penalize people who have an addiction problem, is what it comes down to. We don't know how to solve this problem. So what happens is, if we see someone using heroin, our knee-jerk reaction is to throw them in prison. You take a look at the other two candidates, the Libertarians and the Green Party candidates. They come at it at a more compassionate point of view. In fact, Dale Kearns himself had said, now of course this is for the Senate, but Dale Kearns himself says addiction is not a crime. Ken Krawchuk, talked about if he were to be elected as the next governor of Pennsylvania, he would legalize or decriminalize marijuana and make sure that everyone who's locked up for marijuana offenses will be let out of jail. You know what I mean? That's the compassionate thing to do. I just think we've gotten to a point in this country where throwing people in prison is not the answer to resolve the drug issue that's occurring in our country.
Well, thank you, Mr. Morello, for joining us.
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear more from you for the rest of the night. But
sure.
Now we're going to toss it over to our social desk, Amanda Ebner, to see what's going on with the social world. Amanda, what's going on over there?
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. As most of you have heard, that this is a very, very intense midterm election. We have a lot going on. As you can see, right now there are 33 seats in the Senate, 435 seats in the House, and 14 state governorships that are up for a toss-up this election. There is a lot of, as you can see, photos going around. A lot of people are very emotional about this election, about getting the chance to vote. You're seeing a lot of support in the public all over social media. You see organizations like Mom Rising coming out to congratulate Jennifer Wexton has won her election to Congress. You're seeing a lot of support from the people. You're even seeing a lot of cute photos like this of people decorating their pets up for the election. You're seeing a lot of people come up and like this person who says, I vote to create a better future for not only myself, but the entire country. Voting isn't about one person, but about what is best for everyone, including and especially those unable to voice their opinions. As a future educator, I vote for all the children I work with, as it is more so their future than it is ours. It is our civic duty to work towards the greater good for all citizens and create a progressive society better than the one before. And this comes from Bonnie Strite. And this is a sentiment that you can see echoed in a lot of the social media going around today. A lot of people are feeling very passionate about this. There's a lot going on, and we will keep you posted as the night continues.
Thank you, Amanda. Now, of course, we're going to go and do a quick little update on the map here as we go to it. But before that, I mean, again, we have some couple of races closed, and it looks like, you know, we're as the Democrat, you know, candidate, obviously Bernie Sanders, just to refresh, his race got called in Vermont, and of course another one got called in Virginia.
Yeah, and the winner of that Virginia one was Tim Kaine, who was the incumbent there. So not a whole lot of flipping going on yet, Logan, but it's still early. It's only 8:15. There's a long night ahead of us, and we have plenty of things planned for the viewers at home here. And if we could go check out the map here to kind of see what kind of updates that we have here across. And as you can see, things are really not quite shaping up yet. There's a lot of gray on that map.
Yeah, a lot of gray. Of course, a little bit of red. And it looks like Tennessee and Indiana. But, you know, of course, the two blue states that we do have are Virginia and Vermont. But again, a lot of gray and a lot of things that aren't even colored in yet. So you see still, you know, polls still open in some states, and polls haven't officially closed across the country yet. But a lot of gray out there, so race is still pretty close in this midterm.
Yeah, and one of the key things to see there is at the bottom of the screen there that you had with that kind of bar showing where the majority lies right there. And now we are going to check out with our correspondents. We have Sonu Babu, who is at the Democratic headquarters for Connor. And then we have Luke Yost, who is with the campaign for the Republicans.
Yes, I mean, we are broadcasting the election from all over Pittsburgh tonight. As like you said, we have reporters at the Republican headquarters and the Democrat headquarters, as you can see on your screen there. But that is going to be in the future, as we are still just getting our way here on this election night coverage. We're going to throw to a quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere, because we will be going to those camps, as well as having more interviews with Drew Miller and more as a lot of these races continue to be closed. We'll be right back.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
In your new role, we help you help. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
Disaster tips from the objects left behind.
My home wasn't insured, but you can check your insurance policy now to make sure you're covered. Oh,
My savings are lost, but you can put money aside and plan for unexpected disaster costs.
We're lost forever, but you can scan important documents now so they survive.
For more tips on how to prepare, visit ready.gov.
Welcome back to the Society of Collegiate Journalists and RMU Century Media's election night coverage.
And after losing the 2016 election, the Democratic Party is looking to bounce back in 2018. With more on the revamped Democratic Party, our Josh Barone caught up with Dr. Soren Fanning to find out more.
This year's midterm election is a critical turning point for the future of the country. Not only does this midterm display a chance for the Democrats to win majority in both the House and Senate, but it will also hold great importance in the 2020 elections. As America grows increasingly more liberal, we turn to Professor Soren Fanning to catch a glimpse of Democrats now.
See the modern Democratic Party as the small C conservative party in the U.S. because in a lot of ways their entire MO for the past 30 years has been to defend the status quo. In many ways, the Republican Party, particularly under Donald Trump, has become more of a reactionary party, seeking to actually undo the status quo to a time before then. One of the reasons I think we're seeing more support for the Democrats in 2018 than we did in 2016 is they represent sort of a reset back to the, sort of a regression to the mean.
Professor Fanning also details the importance of Trump's presidency on the 2018 midterms. The so-called Trump effect holds a distinct impact that has previously been unseen in U.S. history.
The Democratic Party has become sort of the reaction against Trump. Trump is governing and campaigning in a way that is certainly unprecedented. So in many ways, the Democratic Party sort of represents the old normal. So people who are dissatisfied with the massive changes, not so much to the country, but definitely with the way politics operates, are probably going to be much more sympathetic to the Democratic Party. This is a guy who has, the president has in many ways shattered so many norms in terms of conduct, in terms of the political culture of this country. It's been jarring. And in a lot of ways, he actually is using political division, social polarization as an election tool, as a way to sort of gin up support among those who are friendly to him. And in a lot of ways, that runs counter to pretty much the entire last century of accepted political behavior.
The subject of voter turnout has become increasingly more important within the past few months. Professor Fanning emphasizes the value of voter turnout within the parties and the impacts it will have on the future of the U.S.
Candidate in Georgia, Mr. Kemp, flat out say, we do better when fewer people vote. I mean, that in essence is what he said. The Democrats, however, have been repeatedly saying, we do better when more people vote. So the Democratic Party is made a distinctive priority, particularly under their new chair, Tom Perez, to ensure that their party, as they put it, looks more like America. But somewhere in the middle of the 2030s, the United States is going to become, wall or no wall, white people are going to be 49.9% of the population for the first time. You can't stop that any more than you can stop gravity. That's going to happen.
Now, the most important area of the Democrats' values today is their strategies to pull voters in. Fanning explains the key issues the Democrats will focus on in the 2018 midterms.
Well, they're clearly hitting health care because that's their biggest winner. You know, if you've got a lead, and according to all the polls, at least for the House they do, you're going to go with something you know works, you know that's popular. You're going to, in some ways, play it safe. Now, you'll see in individual races, different Democrats may focus. The big issue outside of that would be the perception of corruption in the government, particularly around the charges that President Trump has, these conflicts of interest involving his business empire that, unlike previous presidents, he has not dissociated himself from.
The 2018 midterms will undoubtedly have an enormous impact on the upcoming years and, most importantly, the 2020 elections. Whether the predictions Fanning makes come true or fall short, we'll find out on the 7th. For SCJ Election Night, I'm Josh Barone.
And now we're here with Drew Miller and Kristen Davis, who is from the College Democrats here, as we're going to talk about some of the things that have changed for the Democrats since the election. Now, Drew, of course, you're already on the show, but
sure.
Kristen, thank you for joining us.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Whoever wants to take this question first, we're just going to start with, there's been a movement sort of like the Democrat socialists, specifically Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who have been two of the more famous ones. Do you think that this is going to be the future of the Democratic Party, or do you think, we've seen guys like, Connor Lamb, for example, who won, even though he's more towards the center of the spectrum?
I think this midterm election is really what's going to help determine that. I think voters are going to kind of speak out of, they want more of a centrist like Connor Lamb or something like Joe Manchin, who has sided with Republicans on a lot of issues, or you're going to see people like Bernie Sanders, like Elizabeth Warren. And so I think the midterms and kind of what we see tonight is really going to speak to what the voters are looking for.
Elizabeth Warren, by the way, her race was just called. She has just been reelected as Senator for Massachusetts. Now, your thoughts on that, Drew Miller, and how you think what the future direction is for the Democratic Party?
Sure, yeah. Keep in mind for Connor Lamb, he had to be more conservative leaning because that was just his particular district. In PA 18th, there was like Southern Allegheny County, went over to Westmoreland County, Greene, and down. So there's a Republican area. Even now, when you take a look at Northern Allegheny County, Beaver County, where he's trying to win in the 17th district, that's a really Republican area, generally speaking. So I think like for him, he had to move more towards the center. If you take a look at his commercials, look, he talks about being a Marine. In one of his commercials, when he's running for 18th district, they showed him shooting an AR-15. That's not something that a lot of Democrats, would jump behind, but yet, here he is as a Democrat trying to steal support from the Republicans.
Now, Drew, earlier you had mentioned how you think the third-party options, specifically libertarians, are more progressive than even the Democrats. Do you think that the Democrats are being pulled to the more progressive side to try to take some of those voters away from the third-party candidates?
I think that's a possibility, but I think that this is just the way that our country is moving. We've become more polarized, and I don't even think it really began with President Trump, even though a lot of people say that that's where it began. I think I saw this coming years upon years ago, where we're moving away from the center and becoming more polarized. What's interesting, though, is even though we're becoming more polarized, what's happening is between the Democrats and the Republicans, they're both the same because they want an authoritarian government, generally speaking. They always talk about, more or less, how the government can affect your lives, what they want the government to do. I always say that like the Democrats has typically been a party of welfare, the Republicans has been a party of warfare, and then you see that the Libertarians are at least offering that third option to move away from that, give more individual liberty to the individual particular person, that being the voter.
So, Kristen, I'm going to ask you, we're going to fast forward a little bit to the 2020 election. Yep. Do you think that this election is going to determine sort of an outcome for that one? And what do the Democrats have to do to defeat President Trump in that election?
So I do think like the midterms are really going to be what determines. So if the Democrats can get the House tonight, I think that gives them a little bit of time to really think about what direction they want the party to go in. If things don't go the way that a lot of pollsters have been predicting, I think it becomes a little bit more frantic as people want to put their names in the ring and start campaigning early, because that's really going to be the key, I think, with President Trump, because now he has that political record to go on. So the Democrats are going to need a really strong candidate, somebody who's going to be able to attack both the center part of the voters in the Democratic Party as well as those who lean more to the left. And so it's there's been a couple names thrown out there yet, but I don't think anybody has really solidified a strong candidacy for 2020.
So, Kirsten, there's a ton of women candidates out there right now for the Democratic Party. Do you see women as the future of the party?
I mean, I think that women can be the future of any party. I don't think it's necessarily just a Democratic phenomenon. I think you're seeing the same thing in the Republican Party and in third parties. I think women are just kind of starting to see themselves, we need to get involved in the political process more than we ever have before. And so I think that's something we're just going to continue to see, is we're going to see more women step up and say, I want change in my community. I'm going to be the one that brings it.
Well, thank you both for joining us again. Of course, again, we're going to have you guys both later in the night, so don't go anywhere. But now we're going to take it We're going to take a live look into what's happening at the Democratic campaign in PA's 17th district, as we're going to send it over to Sonu Babu, who is at Connor Lamb's election night headquarters. Sonu, what's going on over there?
After talking to people in this room, they said they got to see it to believe the Democratic Party leading. But overall, the excitement is still great. The energy is great. People are coming together, especially after more and more people are leading, especially Florida incumbent Bill Nelson. Overall, the excitement in this room is great. I'm Sonu Babu reporting for SCJ election night. Back to you guys on the desk.
So as you can see, CNN has called the Pennsylvania governor race in favor of incumbent Tom Wolf. Now this is a big deal and I know a lot of us watching at home have seen a lot of the ads on the fuss around the campaign between Tom Wolf and his Republican opponent Scott Wagner. But it seems that CNN has called this race in favor of Wolf to excitement on the place of the Democrats. But what this means for the overall party lines in Pennsylvania has yet to be seen. All the other races are still, as far as we know, too close to call. Right now, you can see a lot of excitement going on as people are very excited about this midterms. There are reports of this being an unusually high midterm come out. You can see in New York City that there's a lot of billboards. Everything's very excited. A lot of people are tweeting about this, talking about this. You can see the memes coming out now, all about voting.
30 seconds, Amanda.
And you can see that overall this is an election that everyone is excited to see the outcomes of. But for now, that's all we got. So we'll keep in touch with you soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Amanda. And ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. But when we come back, we will look at the Trump effect on the election and send it to both student correspondents we have at the Republican camp. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss it.
I felt hopeless.
I know it was a joke, but it still hurt me.
Because of you, I felt wanted and not alone in this world.
Because you said hi to me on the first day of school, I felt included and I knew that I was going to be okay.
Today. Good. I'm here to talk about how with technology you can make amazing worlds. Come with me. My team and I bring the Halo world to life.
Is that you?
That is me. I wasn't a math genius and I knew nothing about coding. But you guys do. You guys have the power to change things.
I want your job.
I want you to have my job.
Welcome back to the Society Collegiate Journal's election night coverage. We're back again with Libertarian Drew Miller. We're going to discuss the Trump effect on the election. So, Drew, Mr. Miller, thank you for coming back again. And What is the Trump effect exactly? Explain it to all of the people watching at home.
Basically, this election here, and I've probably heard it said a million times before, this is a referendum on Donald Trump. This is going to be a reflection as to what people think of him right now and where they want to see the country go in the future. This could be a somewhat peculiar election because the economy is doing great, and you've always heard the expression, you know, it's the economy stupid, but in this particular case, that won't be what's going to be occurring tonight, I don't think. Here, I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a large voter turnout, head out to the polls to vote really essentially against Donald Trump and basically his message. A lot of people have been talking about the divisiveness that's been occurring within the country. You know, but in the same sense, just, you know, going off of that, I've been warning a lot of my friends, hey, you know, they talk about a blue wave, vote blue, you know, and I always have to remind them, look, toddlers vote for colors and adults vote for candidates, you know, and if we go in there with this idea and this mentality of let's vote blue, you know, to go the other direction, are we really going to be voting for those people who are going to reach across the aisle and try to bring the country back together, or are we going to just try to divide us even more? I think that, you know, it might be the latter. We might be trying to divide us even more just by going and voting against Donald Trump, essentially, is what's going to be happening.
So historically, the House and the Senate, things typically flip during the midterm elections during a presidency. However, a recent jobs report came out on Friday, and it had some favorable numbers for the Trump campaign. Do you think that'll be enough to save the Republicans a couple of seats that they might have lost?
You know, it's difficult to say. I think maybe a couple of weeks ago it could have been potentially, but I think what happens is you take a look at the Kavanaugh hearings, you couple that with what is essentially a terrorist attack last week in Pittsburgh, and then the mail bombs that are being sent out. And now I realize that, like, you know, you can't tie all of that specifically to Donald Trump, but a lot of people are making that assertion that, you know, look, this is what's happening to our country now because of President Trump. And so I think, you know, right now things have worked against him, and he's trying to maybe swing the favor back in his direction by talking about the migrants coming up, the refugees coming up through Mexico heading towards our border. I don't think that's going to be enough, honestly, to save him. I think what's going to happen is we're going to see, you know, essentially the blue wave, what people are talking about. Here's another thing that people aren't talking about, though, that I'm interested to see is what is going to be the third-party effect on a lot of these close races. When I ran in the 18th Congressional District, I woke up the next morning as the most hated man in America because I had more than double the amount of votes that separated Conor Lamb and Rick Saccone. And I think we might see that, you know, this particular time. I know before we talked about Nevada, we talked about Jackie Rosen against Dean Heller, the incumbent. And what's interesting is that there's a libertarian in that race, and his name is Tim Hagen. He is polling at 4%, which actually more than doubles what they're expecting the spread to be between these two candidates. I think what might happen is they might look at this guy in the morning and say, hey, it's because of this, you know, libertarian that this other person won. Take a look at what's happening in these governor's races in Georgia and Florida, especially in Georgia. You have Stacey Abrams, Brian Kemp, who are battling each other. It's been a nasty race. Stacey Abrams could potentially be the first female black governor in our nation's history. But what people aren't talking about is Ted Metz, the libertarian candidate, who is polling at 2.17%, which actually more than doubles the spread again between these two candidates. I think what's going to happen is we're going to wake up in the morning and someone's going to take a look at Ted Metz and say, he's the reason we either do or do not have our first female black governor in America.
Well, Drew, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
But with this election being highly contested, everyone has an opinion and wants it to be heard. Our Sonu Babu went around campus and found out what the students are thinking about and what issues are important to them.
Midterm elections are right around the corner. We decided to talk to RMU students around campus to see what they think about President Trump and his policies. What are your thoughts on President Trump?
Personally, I don't agree with most of his views, but like, I don't think we're gonna get anywhere if people just keep denying anything he puts out. So yeah, granted, he's definitely not a grade A person to be president, but at the same time, we can't just deny anything that he tries to do, because we will not get anywhere.
I think President Trump has done a fantastic job, and everything that President Obama took credit for, that's all false, because, I mean, he blamed Bush for everything, and I feel like him accepting Trump's credit is not fantastic.
I have generally mixed opinions on him. I feel he has done a lot of the things he said he was going to do, which, I mean, that's great. But in general, I feel he may have rushed some things, did things poorly, and should generally stay off of the social media.
You know, I haven't been much into politics the last few years, but I mean, I do know that a lot of people go hand in hand with what he's saying, but I'd say he's doing a pretty good job economy-wise. You know, the lowest unemployment since 1969. It's the highest economy that we've seen since then in the United States, and I'd say it's going pretty well politically, but that's all I'm really feeling right now.
He is not very well, socialized, in my opinion. I think that some of the things he does are not very professional, and they definitely shouldn't be something that we want our president, someone who's representing our country, to be doing.
So what policies do you like or dislike about him with what he's done?
Not necessarily a fan of many of them. I just feel I was very shocked to see that they were implanted very quickly.
Do not agree with the Muslim ban. I fully disagree with that. I don't agree with his foreign trade policy, which he's like, yeah, just trade with any country, despite their morals. I highly disagree with that. I mean, it's a good thing that he's bridging the gap between the U.S. and North Korea with some of those policies, but at the same time, it's like, you know, we're still trading with Russia, and Russia does a lot of war crimes, so yeah.
These have been some of the opinions of RMU students around campus for the midterm elections. Reporting from Robert Morris University, this is Sonu Babu, SCJ Election Night.
And as you can see, Logan, many students have mixed opinions on what's going on in our country right now. And to kind of get a look at these mixed opinions and what's going on, we have Luke Yost at our Republican camp.
Yeah, Luke, what's going on down there?
Thank you, guys, and I am Luke Yost. I'm live here at Sunny Jim's, the oldest bar and grill in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but more importantly, we're here for the Keith Rothfuss watch party. Keith Rothfuss has yet to show up. He's facing Connor Lamb in a key Senate, or a key House race, excuse me. Both are incumbent congressional leaders, and, you know, this is a key vote for the House if, you know, Lamb is a conservative conservative Democrat, and Rothfuss is the conservative candidate. A very interesting way how that would shape up if one of these two guys win. Rothfuss, though, he's been focusing a lot on his economy and how to reestablish a great economy here in the U.S. Also, he's also big in the energy field. Financial structure of this country is what he enjoys talking about, what he's looking to fix when he potentially gets into the House of Representatives. Foreign policy, also a big hot topic in the country today. He has talked openly about how he feels about it. More importantly, how we're going to do border control. Border control has also been a hot topic for both these candidates in their debates, in their meetings back and forth. Border control is also, you know, something that a lot of these people need to realize. Healthcare, also another big thing. They got rid of the Obamacare, and we're back to what we're going to do here. But for now, we're going to wait for Keith Rothfuss to arrive. When he does, we make an interview, maybe talk to him a little bit. But for right now, we're going to go back to Mike Sciulli and Logan Carney with more SCJ midterm election night coverage.
Alrighty, thank you so much, Luke Yost.
Yeah, now we're going to send it to the map, and we're going to get a quick update on what's going on with all the polls as they continue to close. And Mike, why don't you just start us off with this quick little update that we have here?
Yeah, and as you can see, more things starting to fill in here, some more blue. One of the actually surprisingly blue things down there is the state of Texas. PA looking red right now.
Yes.
And one of the really interesting things right now is the state of Florida, who's often one of, if not the biggest swing state in presidential elections, is currently sitting at 50% Republican right now. So it's very close down there. A lot of toss-ups, like we said, 38 in the House of Representatives alone. And we're just getting started here as we're coming to the tail end of this first hour after polls.
And Mike,
closed.
as we mentioned before, some of these races have been called. I mean, here's the Florida one here. Is like you said, Rick Scott barely winning there, just a little bit under 0.5% of what he's leading over Nelson. But because some of these races have been called. Of course, we mentioned earlier Elizabeth Warren won for Massachusetts in the Senate race. Ohio's Senate race has been called for Sherrod Brown, and then Virginia and Rhode Island also being called, as we mentioned earlier. Rhode Island called for White House, and some of these other close races in West Virginia. There's the Ohio race there with Brown winning by about 20%, but some of these other races are even closer against Virginia, West Virginia, Florida, and Texas, all very close. And it's really a close night across the whole country in a lot of these races.
Yeah, and as you can see there, Senator Manchin there in West Virginia with a 9% lead there. And Logan, we're going to keep you guys updated throughout the night, but until then, we are going to kick it over to our social media correspondent, Amanda Ebner. Amanda, what is going on out on the world of social media?
Now, a lot of the results from the elections are coming in. We get, as you can see, the governor of Tennessee has been settled. There is in Ohio, there it looks like the senator there, Denver Rigman, and you can see how close the Florida governor race is coming. Basically, the results are starting to pour in, and people cannot stop responding. It's all over Twitter, over Facebook. People are just expressing whether it's delight or whether it is disappointment. The people are responding, which is always something you'd like to see in democracy. So, that's all for right now. Back to you at the studio.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. And we're going to send you to a quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere because we're going to have a quick a video about what the issues are important of campus. Of course, we already heard about the students' opinions. Why don't you find out what issues are important to them, as well as we're going to sit down with Robert Morse's own foreign student correspondent, Dylan Gatos. Yeah, Dylan.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. And now earlier this week, our very own Samuel Anthony had the chance to catch up with the RMU foreign student correspondent, Dylan Gatos. And here's what Dylan had to say to Sam.
My name's Dylan Gatos. I'm a senior studying history and economics dual degree. I also have a nonprofit leadership and management certificate that I completed with Donna Anderson through the Engaged Learning and Community Involvement Center. But I also work for the Center for Global Engagement as their student worker, a global ambassador, a global diplomat. I oversee the implementation of the Global Village program. I'm in charge of the entire living learning community, which is housed in Yorktown, which I am also in charge of. As a lead community advisor, I oversee Yorktown and Marshall Halls. And then I'm the vice president and a founding father for Phi Mu Delta fraternity, where I oversee all the chair positions, a lot of our conduct board and judicial affairs, and then a lot of our off-campus outreach programs. I knew that college wasn't working for me right around December of my freshman year and decided to do something about it. So I left. I went and met the Center for Global Engagement. I met Jennifer Kramer, and they convinced me to go overseas, to go to Paris, and I studied abroad. And really, it was that experience that got me involved in foreign policy. I came back. I came back directly from being on my own for almost a month and a half, and went straight back into classes and knew that I wanted to get involved and somehow give back to the Center for Global Engagement. So I went and asked them if they just had a simple job, and I became one of their student workers. I did basic tasks, but from there I really got to know about some of the opportunities they had and became their global ambassador, and then a global diplomat, and then a global mentor, and then I became a CA where they put me in the global village, and it was just it just built onto, each step built onto the next. So global ambassadors, they work with new international students. For their international orientation for international students is different. They come a few days later than the domestic students. They come for a training program. They'll get acclimated to the US culture and classroom culture. So the global ambassador's job is really just to be that first American that they meet. And then the global diplomat is the person who's in charge of the training for the global ambassadors. The Young African Leaders Initiative, it was started under President Obama. I got involved really because I worked on the program at a different internship prior. So I interned at Global Pittsburgh, which is an international exchange organization here in the Pittsburgh region. And they were partnering with Duquesne University to bring a cohort of these Mandela Washington Fellows here to Duquesne University to study. So I got to do their homestay placements and interact with the program, get to know it a little bit. Within November, after my internship had ended, the State Department application opened up for that next summer to apply for the same position. In DC, I was working obviously at the Harry S. Truman building, which is the building where the U.S. Department of State is housed. I was specifically working in the Educational and Cultural Affairs Office, which is a sub-bureau of the department. Within that, I was working within academic exchanges as their intern working on YALI. So once you complete your internship, your supervisor has to alert you to this program, which means obviously your supervisor likes you or not. And then you have to apply. They'll read through your application. They'll actually solicit you to send information about your school. So I had to do an analysis of RMU, and they will actually decide whether RMU is even eligible. To know that after all the hard work that I've done, that something like the Department of State for the federal government has selected me to back me up and say that, yeah, this kid from Western PA who grew up in Uniontown actually kind of knows what he's talking about, I'm honored.
Well, Dylan Goulding, we are honored to have you here, so thank you for joining us tonight. Now, we're going to ask you some questions about, what exactly is going on with the State Department and your role. So, is there a specific reason that the State Department created these positions for students like yourself on college campuses?
Yes, thank you for having me as well. This program really exists to coordinate student outreach and to explain what the U.S. Department of State does, to educate Americans about why foreign policy is an issue and concern and why it's relevant in our modern age.
Yeah, so Dylan, you have that distinct honor you mentioned of the foreign policy student here, one of 46 in the entire country. And there's only 50 states and there's 46 of you guys. So what are the things that you have done here at Robert Morris so far in your new position?
Probably my favorite thing was I was at the job fair. So back in October, I was able to talk to people about some of the careers that the Department of State has. RMU, as you know, is pretty professionally focused. Everyone ends up wanting a job whenever we graduate from here, hopefully make some money. So it was a real privilege to be able to talk to students about some of the opportunities that they can have here to advance their careers later on.
So you talked about getting jobs. Where do you see yourself going in the future?
I'm actually in the process of applying for the United States Marine Corps officer program. It's a hope. We're going to see, so long as medical clearances and all that plays out well, then that's my goal afterwards.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
We will be hoping for you here now. Seeing as you received this role right as the midterm is very significant. Midterm is obviously just kicking off tonight. What do you say? What are sort of things that you've been telling people to to go out and vote, but more importantly, stay informed? And how do you think people should be staying informed with what's happening in the midterm?
Thank you. So like I told Sam earlier in this week, one of the biggest things is really just understanding where you sit. So if you go out and vote, yeah, that's great. Thank you for going out and doing your civic duty. However, if you don't know what you specifically stand for, why are you doing it, really? You need to be educated. The best way, honestly, to do that is to do your own research. Go online. There's certain websites you can look up to find out your stances, and then look in and dig into those stances themselves to see what candidates are supporting what issues.
One of the big challenges in our country right now is this whole premise of fake news and being informed. So what kind of advice would you give someone that can try to maybe help them avoid reading something that they perceive to be true but is actually false?
Yeah, so that is an issue even for myself, and I'm sure for both of you as well. It's an issue that's a problem for most of the country. One of the biggest things is to not take anything at a face value. If you don't see the simple citations that we as college students know what to look for, if you don't see a date, if you don't see an author, if you're not seeing sources at the bottom, probably know that you shouldn't be looking at that source. Also, if it's something from Facebook, specifically maybe The Onion, let's stay away from that.
Well, Dylan, thank you very much for joining us, and good luck in the future with your marine I almost said operation, but that's obviously not what it is, but marine application that that you put in. So good luck with that. Thank you. That is the end of our first hour here in our election night coverage. We're going to send it to a 5-minute commercial break, but don't go anywhere because we'll be coming back with hour 2, and we got a lot more to talk about for the rest of the night.
Look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Encuentra el bosque más cercano en descubreelbosque.org. El bosque, más cerca de lo que crees.
Oh, sweetie. Okay, you know what? Let's take off his sweatshirt. Get rid of pictures of him. You don't have to look at him. Goodbye, Dave.
Mom, you don't understand. He's tagged in like 400 of my posts.
I can cut out tags.
No, that's not how it works.
What is a tag?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love to share their first with you.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He knows he's a pretty big deal. How could you not love him?
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Do you want to retire like a champ? Just like legendary basketball star Uncle Drew?
Don't do him like that, Uncle Drew!
You're already acing the game. You've got your dream ride.
Don't be slamming my door.
Sorry about that.
You just did the same.
Gotta get the boys. Your dream vacation and your dream team. And now you can make your retirement just as legendary.
I get buckets.
Get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Welcome back as we're in the second hour here in our election night coverage. Again, I'm Logan Carney here with Michael Sciulli. We're going to throw to Sonu Babu, who is at the Democratic's headquarters now. Sonu, what's going on down there? Sonu, looks like maybe having a little bit of technical difficulties, but Michael, you know, again, you know, a lot of these races, a lot of very, very close so far.
Yeah, and one of those races is the one that Sonu's at with Connor Lamb, and she's going to be here with us shortly. But a lot of close races, a lot of things being called so far, as we can see on the map here, Logan. Things starting to fill in. Really excited to see what's going down in that race in Florida there. It was neck and neck within 0.5% or something like that, Logan. It's going to be incredibly exciting to see what's going on there. In New Jersey now, we have a Democratic state senator that was called there.
Bob Menendez of New Jersey, reelected. He's going to be serving his third term in New Jersey. Of course, you know, again, so a lot of these races are closing. You see Rick Scott and Nelson in Florida separated by a little bit under a percentage, and how close that race is. Of course, a lot of those votes there. West Virginia Senate, Manchin leading by about 7% over Morrissey. Another very, very close race, as has really been the theme tonight from across the country. Of course, only 17 precincts were reported in that one. In Texas, 50-50 in Cruz and O'Rourke, a very close race, and that's the one that, you know, we expected to be close because, you know, again, O'Rourke putting in more than twice as much money as Cruz did in campaign finances in terms of donations as well. And now we're going to send it to Sonu Babu, who is in the DNC headquarters for Connor Lamb. Sonu, what is going on down there?
I'm here with Melinda Weddy. Melinda, how do you feel today?
Excited.
And do you feel confident in this election currently?
Yeah.
Why so?
I think Connor's a good candidate. Yes.
What specific policies are you passionate about regarding Connor Lamb's policies?
I really like him because he co-sponsored the Disabilities Integration Act, and I have a son who is autistic.
Can you tell me more about the Disabilities Integration Act?
It focuses more funding on home and community-based services rather than institutions.
And can you, do you feel confident about the Democratic Party? Do you think they'll be leading Senate and the House?
I'm excited and nervous and realistically optimistic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Back to you guys on the desk.
Thank you, Sonu. We're going to take a look again at the map. Now, of course, Mike, something that I found interesting looking at some of these numbers, you know, across the country, really to see just how close these races are, 52% have been voting in favor of Republicans, 47% in favor of Democrats, only separate about 800 votes of 800,000 votes. Of course, that's across the country, so that doesn't, you know, give a good general about how each individual race is doing so far. But that just shows you that they're all close across the country.
Definitely, Logan. And as you can see here, Ted Cruz finally getting a little bit of lead on Beto O'Rourke down in Texas there. Of course, we just checked on that a couple seconds ago, and it was a 50-50 toss-up right there. And there we go again with Rick Scott and Nelson back in Florida. Very close there. 83% of the precincts are reporting down there. And look how close that one is. I have a feeling we're going to be watching that one for a while. And then over in Indiana, 50% reporting for Braun at 56.18%. Over Donnelly, 43.82%.
Yeah, North Dakota Senator Kramer, it looks like he's pulling away with this one with 63% of the vote. Now, again, that is only 1% of the precincts reporting, so of course that could change. Again, when 1% of the Texas race was reporting, O'Rourke was winning by about 30%. So that could something that could change throughout the night. Tennessee, 3% reporting. Blackburn winning with 76% of the vote over in Tennessee. Again, one of those important races that we're looking at for the Senate. Now, like we said, you know, both trying to, the Democrats trying to flip the House. There's 218 seats. They need 24 of them to flip the House.
Yeah, definitely. And they have to keep hoping for this. And one of the very surprising things that I think that you brought up, Logan, is how close nationwide the vote is for Republicans and Democrats. And it's really, I think it's kind of surprising. And now we're going to send it to Luke Yost, who's in the Republican headquarters for tonight.
Last numbers I checked, Lamb has a 24-point lead coming into this hour against Keith Rothfuss. Only 14% of places have officially reported, though. And this is an interesting race, again, because of the fact that both of these gentlemen are incumbent candidates going for the same House seat. This is the only one in the House of Representatives in the country, the only seat in the country that two incumbent candidates are going after at the same time. Now, see, this is an interesting setup because the 17th congressional district is new to since the 2016 election. It is that's when this was realigned. This is when this district came to be. But more importantly, these districts were the 3rd district, the 12th district, the 14th districts, and the 18th districts respectively. I'm sorry, excuse me. But most of these districts did vote Republican or would side middle of the line. The only district that voted Democratic historically was the 14th district, but still a lot of places yet to be considered, yet to report. This is something they're going to follow for a long time. Again, since the last time we were here, since the last time you saw me, a lot more people have rolled in. This place has gotten a lot louder, a lot more more life coming on here. A lot more people to come talk to and to meet and greet with. But more importantly, this is a seat that should be watched not only in this area but around the country. Two incumbent candidates going for the same spot. The only one in the U.S. happening right now in our backyard. But again, this is a key because this is really a swing vote in the House, if you will, because Rothfuss, again, is the conservative candidate. But Lamb has been the conservative Democrat. And really, if something comes up on his desk, either one of his desks, it could be a big decision. But for now, we're going to wait. We're going to see if we can maybe get some people to talk to us. But for now, let's go back to Michael Sciulli and Logan Carney back on the desk. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Luke, from the update from the Republican camp. And again, nationwide, a lot of close races. But Mike, you know, Luke providing a lot of insight on the Connor Lamb campaign against Rothfuss. And of course, we do have somebody that went up against Connor Lamb in the studio, as we've had all night with Drew Miller. So it's just, you know, looking at that race again, you know, taking a look across the country, things are even tightening up, and that one is, you know, one that's particular.
Yeah, and if you looked at the quick numbers there, it's a lot closer early on here than many thought it would be possibly. Lamb with that double-digit lead, heading into the polls there. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. Now we're going to cut to a quick commercial break here. But we're going to be right back. We got plenty more in store here, including a little look of the inside of how the LGBTQ plus community is looking at this upcoming election. Stay tuned.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly and put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
I remember, Dad, you and Mom got this car with a hatchback. I said, you know, I'd be happy to give you the money to get a really great car. And he said, well, no, this works for me. I says, why? Because it's the right height to put the meals in. Dad, tell me when you first got an inkling about Meals on Wheels.
There was kind of an abandoned house. That's where we got started with Meals on Wheels. We kind of filled a need for people as they got older.
It's the human interaction that
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So now we're going to throw it to a quick a package that we teased a little bit, or a quick story that we teased a little earlier, my apologies, in which a little bit of students have talked about the issues that are important to them, and we're going to throw it to that story right now.
There's been no shortage of issues that have been discussed. Our Sonu Babu caught up with some students and talked about these issues. Let's see what Sonu has for us.
On the campus of Robert Morris University, some students have been voting for a couple years, while others have just started to vote for the first time. The question is, are they utilizing this right?
It's important to vote because I feel like if no one votes, then your opinions don't ever get out there. It's always good to make a choice and change how things are if they're bad to you.
I do plan on voting. I think that it's just one of our fundamental rights that we have the opportunity to get to have a say in our government, and I think it's especially important for people our age to vote because we're voting for what we want to see. We want to make changes in the world, especially at this age as we're going to enter the world ourselves. So,
voting for me is like just casting my vote out there, just trying to get the word out there, just another vote in the poll, I guess.
No, I'm not that interesting, if I'm honest.
It's just, I think it's important because if you want your opinion voiced, you have to vote for the right people and yeah, sorry.
Why do I plan on voting? Because I feel like the youth is underrepresented in Congress and government, and I feel like we have views that the older generations don't have and are important to be shared.
I think a lot of the things we've been seeing about immigration and things that he's been doing, we should focus on because that could end up hurting our rights as citizens and just as human beings in general. I think that's important for us to have a say in.
I feel like, at least in my position, I always felt like I'm just one person. It didn't really matter, especially as a younger kid. So any chance you get to actually make a difference is good.
The whole thing, I think the only issue with the voting now is I don't think people are educated enough to know what to vote for. They don't look at in depth, and they either vote blindly or they don't think they have the means of voting.
While some students are interested in voicing their opinions, others not so much. From Robert Morris University, this is Sonu Babu, SCJ Election Night.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we are here now. Kristen is back with us, but we are now joined by Celine and Samantha from the College Republicans. Of course, Kristen from the College Democrats. One of the things that we talked about kind of during that package a little bit was the one student that said one young person's vote doesn't really matter at the polls. We're going to start with Kristen. What are your thoughts on that? Because you clearly disagreed with that during the break.
Yeah, I mean, I think young people are really what's changing this election. Young people are really motivated this year to get out. And even in the early voting in some states, we've seen a really big increase. In Tennessee, it was up over 700% in terms of participation among voters who are aged 18 to 29. So young people, you know, they have to get out and vote because they're really what the future of this country is. And so they have to be motivated and they have to want to go fight for the issues that they're passionate about.
Now, what are your guys' takes on that? I'm assuming, as young as we're all fairly young here, what are your overall thoughts?
So I think if every young person thought that holistically, it'd make a much larger effect than, you know, a single person would anticipate. But that seems to be a consistent thought process among a lot of people in our age group. Local elections usually carry a voter turnout rate of about 20%, and we're seeing that rising rapidly because people are actually taking, you know, taking serious the gravity of election results and what that could mean for, you know, our adulthoods and the futures for our children, even as far along as that.
Now, for the past 2 years, really since Donald Trump was elected president, we've heard a lot of talk about this blue wave. Now, Kristen, what are your thoughts? Why does the Democratic Party, why are they so confident heading into tonight?
I mean, I think the Democratic Party as a whole, especially when you're looking at the establishment and the federal government, they want to be encouraged. They want to motivate people. And so by saying, hey, there's a blue wave, people want to get out and they want to contribute to that. Now, whether or not we actually see that, I think is something yet to be seen tonight. We don't have a lot of results in. And so I think Democrats are hopeful that they're going to retake some power, especially in the federal government, but also in the state government. I think the state government is really where a lot of change happens. And so it's important to not only focus on what happens with the House, what happens with the Senate, but what happens with governorships, what happens with state houses, state senates, because that's, I think, where Democrats can make a lot more difference as well.
So, touching upon that now, the Democrats have had all this really hype build up around them heading into 2018 and tonight. Why is it important for the Republicans to be optimistic heading into this election?
I think it's important for Republicans to be optimistic because, you know, we've already shown that we have the motivation to get out and vote. And we've seen results from that. You know, we control all three branches of the government right now, and I think that we've seen fantastic results in the past 2 years, and Republicans should be motivated and should be encouraged to get out and vote so that we can continue that trend.
So last Friday, and I had touched upon this a little bit with Drew Miller earlier, there was a jobs report that came out in favor of Donald Trump. And I'm going to ask you guys the same question that I asked him. Do you think that this will help the Republican Party as a whole sustain some seats or even possibly gain seats tonight?
Right, so I think it shows consistently from as far back as the 2016 election that there is very much so a silent majority, and there is a large demographic of people who may not be showcased by the media, as the media leans typically pretty left frequently. So I think that silent majority and the concept thereof hasn't died 2 years over. I think many people are pleased with what Trump has done. He's kept a lot of his promises and has delivered on what he got elected for. So I think, as Sam said prior, we are to be optimistic, and I think we're rightfully optimistic within that silent majority.
Now, Kristen, let's now pin this silent majority versus the blue wave. Do you think that the blue wave will be enough to kind of overstep that and propel the Democrats into power in the House or even the Senate?
I think there's definitely a good chance in the House. I think the Senate, just by nature of how small it is, and you know that we're only re-electing 1/3 of the Senate every 2 years, I think it becomes more difficult just logistically. I think there's a really good chance in the House just because of how people are motivated to get out. And I was just looking earlier that it's been shown in early polling data that voters are really more concerned about healthcare this year than they are the economy. And it's really interesting because a lot of times you hear that people vote with their wallets. And so I think how people are feeling about healthcare, especially dealing with the Affordable Care Act, will also kind of help determine that. And so I think that's something to keep an eye out on whether the blue wave really has the effect that people are foreseeing.
All right, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you having all of us on here. And now we are going to try to reach out to our on-campus reporter, Garrett Roberts. Garrett's been kind of perusing around campus, trying to find people to talk to, kind of hear what Robert Morris as a whole, as our small community, has been saying about things going on campus. Let's kick it over to Garrett now.
Guys, for those technical difficulties there, but we're going to go straight to the map and take a look at what's been going on around the country in terms of some of these races as they're starting to get called.
Yeah, definitely, Logan. And as you can see on the map, once again, Florida, looking down there, has changed from red to blue, so that is an interesting development. Same thing with the state of Texas. Of course, we're going to have to get an update on that race between Cruz and O'Rourke, and as we're going to see here, that race in Florida, and Nelson has surpassed Scott.
Yeah, 90% of the precincts reporting for that, so that one is coming down to the wire. There's the Texas one right there. Cruz was just 10% so far still, but he still has a slight lead over Beto O'Rourke. We're going to go to the Pennsylvania results a little bit. Tom Wolf being called the governor over Scott Wagner. That race has been called. Wolf getting 68.72% of the vote. Bob Casey also being called over Lou Barletta. He got 65% of the vote. Of course, Nolan Gatos in the 44th, and that is a state house. Noel barely leading over Gatos right now, 13%. And some of these other ones, you know, Connor Lamb and Keith Rufus, you know, one of the ones that we're looking at. Connor Lamb currently leads with just under 62% of the vote, and Keith Rufus has 38%, but only 31 precincts reporting in that one.
Yeah, but that is quite a large lead for Lamb, and it is something that when looking into things earlier tonight, Lamb was a heavy favorite there. And then in the 14th Congressional District, you have Reschenthaler with a 0.01% lead over Barreiro with a 45.99% of the vote there. Only 4% of the precincts are in there, so that is going to be another one to watch there, as it's fairly close early on here in this one.
Even more important than the percentage, only a 600 vote difference between the two of them. That is one that is going to be very close. And again, as it is, you know, nationwide, you know, again, just giving an update just to see how close it is nationwide. 100,000 more votes cast for Democrats than Republicans, 8 million and about, actually Republicans just passed them as I was speaking. The Republicans just passed them nationally, and then the Democrats passed them again. So this is something that keeps changing back and forth, very, very close. As the results coming in for us, it keeps flip-flopping. So this is a very, very close races nationwide.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, we're going to kind of see something would happen in 2016 where the Democrats, I feel, are going to pull away with that vote number, as they did actually have the popular vote in 2016. Hillary had more of a popular vote than Donald Trump did. But I think overall nationwide, I think that's going to be something that we see, although it is going to be very close. And now we're going to go to another commercial break here, but don't worry, we're going to be right back with an even more in-depth breakdown of our 2018 midterms. We'll be right back.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
In your new role, we help you help. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
Disaster tips from the objects left behind.
My home wasn't insured, but you can check your insurance policy now to make sure you're covered. Oh.
My savings are lost, but you can put money aside and plan for unexpected disaster costs.
We're lost forever, but you can scan important documents now so they survive.
For more tips on how to prepare, visit ready.gov.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're over here with former Libertarian candidate Drew Miller. Drew, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, we talked about it a little bit earlier, although just more specifically, how important are these midterm elections for both parties?
I think they are tremendously important. I've been saying that for years now, that these are actually probably more important than even the presidential elections, and that's one that everyone typically tends to focus on. But with like these elections, this is who we're going to pick to be our next members of Congress. It gives a general idea. It's a litmus test of basically where we are as a country and where we want to go as a country. Some of these races are really exciting. For me personally, this is my Super Bowl, really, when you come down to it. I'm watching a lot of these races. In fact, I think they said that 5 or 6 of these races in Pennsylvania are what they consider to be like battleground toss-up races. That's nearly 1/3 of all of the congressional districts in Pennsylvania are toss-ups. So we don't know how it's going to go. I'm thinking it's going to go blue. They're suggesting it's going to go blue. But it's going to be an exciting night to see how it ends up.
Now, from the perspective of someone in the Libertarian Party, what would you consider a success for the party, for your party on the night?
Here's the thing. We're not going to see a Libertarian candidate win really any major election tonight. I can say that with 100% confidence. But what we want to do is we want to get in there and, number one, let people know that we are out there. A lot of people still don't know anything about these third parties. And what we want to do is try to be essentially the spoiler in these particular elections so that people will recognize us and realize that the Democrats and the Republicans, if they want our votes, they need to change what they're doing, because right now they're going in a direction opposite of where we want to go. They're trying to create more government. We're trying to create less government and give the freedoms back to the people of the state. So it's going to be an interesting election, to say the least.
So now you touched about what is a success for your party, Libertarian Party, and other third parties. What about the big two, the Democrats, Republicans? Sure. What needs to happen tonight for it to be a success for the Republicans, and what needs to happen tonight for it to be a success for the Democrats?
Well, I think for sure the Democrats have to take the House as they're predicted to do. If they don't do that, they've essentially failed. Their message wasn't strong enough. I think basically going forward, though, they have to realize that they may have won the election, but now they're responsible to answering to the voters, the people that elected them. And if they're going to keep on this direction of dividing our country, they're just going to be voted out again the next time around. That basically if they don't do their job in these next 2 years, it's going to be Donald Trump for another 4 more years.
So you think that this is basically a job, we would say this is a job report on President Trump, and if this midterm fails, then, and it goes in favor of the Republicans, then it does provide a little bit of foreshadowing for what happens 2 years from now?
I would say so. And, you know, I don't think that this will necessarily be a huge defeat for Donald Trump. He can use this to his advantage, because what's going to happen over these next 2 years if the Democrats win, he now has someone to blame. Before, he had no one to blame, you know, and he's sometimes throwing even Republicans under the bus, which is somewhat peculiar. But in this next 2 years, he can look to the House and say that the Democrats are to blame for what's ever happening, you know, bad in our particular country.
So what do you think going forward into 2020 is the best thing going for Republicans and Donald Trump?
It's really going to be the economy. And I think that even at the end of 2020, they'll have to look back and hopefully it'll still be going as well as it is now. And if they have that, they might be able to use that. And I think what the Republicans need to realize is that in order to win these votes, they need to become more socially liberal, essentially becoming more libertarian. You know, I think this idea of becoming more socially conservative isn't really resonating with a lot of the younger Republicans. From what I've seen, you know, people don't care about that. I think people really care about the economy and the direction the economy is going.
One last question here.
Sure.
I did want to ask it. So you mentioned, you know, about giving your party more spotlight, and you mentioned about also changing the platform of other parties. Which would be more? We already asked you about your success, but which one would be more successful? Would it be changing sort of, because of the Libertarians, changing sort of the platforms of the Republican and Democrats party, or would it be people, you know, now understanding that there are 3 and 4 and even more candidates out there by recognizing your parties as more serious contenders?
You know, I think that as a country, we'd be better off by having a lot more political parties to choose from. You know, I think that, like, we do ourselves a disjustice if we walk in, or disservice, I should say, when we walk into the voting booth and only have 2 options. And then, you know, the Republicans and Democrats are expecting you to vote for them. And what I always tell people is that, you know, no one is entitled to have your vote. Those votes have to be earned. And right now, the Republican and Democratic candidates haven't done anything to earn the votes of these independent and third-party voters.
Where do you see the state of the Libertarian Party in 2020?
You know, I think we're going to keep gaining momentum. I saw a graphic that was thrown up on the screen that showed that Gary Johnson, the former Libertarian presidential candidate in 2016, who's now running for the Senate in New Mexico, had something like 15% of the vote, and that is unheard of. I don't know that any Libertarian has ever had that high of a percentage of votes. And then, you know, even this next time around, or not this next time around, but just recently, President Trump tweeted that that there is this Libertarian candidate, Lucy Brenton, in Indiana, and she actually has been receiving support from the Democrats, and the Democrats have been telling Republican voters to vote for Lucy Brenton over the Republican candidate. Donald Trump actually made a tweet about it the other day, and he said the word libertarian, and for us, that was a win.
Thank you. So we're gonna head and throw to a quick video. As our very own John Blinn has got to sit down as he went around campus and around the area and talked to students on whether or not they planned on voting.
With the 2018 elections underway, we went around campus to ask students if they planned on voting.
This is very similar to the last one we just watched.
It's a chance for me to see the change that I want to have in government and to really provide for my future and the future of America. So
I think it's just important to vote, not just young people, because we all want to be represented.
While some students prepared for the polls, there were others that planned on not voting this year due to a lack of preparation.
I can't say I'm particularly informed on the candidates in this upcoming elections. The most I've seen on either of them is slander campaigns from the other side. So, you know, I only know bad things.
One student in particular felt that the information for voting had been adequately provided, but it had still somehow managed to slip his mind.
I felt like they did enough. They had like a whole table set up and had people asking to vote. I just happened to forget to.
Some students decided not to vote due to the lengthy process of filling out an absentee application.
Like name, birthday, whatever, like typical stuff to verify who you are. And then you send that into the voter registration office and they send you back a ballot. You fill it out, sign it, send it back.
Voting was held just down the road from Robert Morris at Moon High School. Signing off for SCJ Election Night, I'm John Blinn.
Welcome back. We're here again with Kristen Davis, who's from the College Democrats. Now, we heard Drew Miller talk about the importance of the midterms. So from your perspective, what is important for the Democrats in these midterms?
So I think the really important part of the midterms for the Democrats is really setting up what 2020 is going to look like. If things don't go the way a lot of people are predicting with this blue wave or the Democrats taking the House, I think we're going to see people declare their candidacy a lot earlier, and we're going to see a really big reconsideration of what the Democratic Party wants as an establishment. Whereas if they do get the House, I think they get a little bit more breathing room and they get a little bit more time to really consider how they can best reach out to the voting base and really motivate people to continue coming out past the midterm elections. So I think the midterm elections are going to be really important for seeing what issues are actually important to voters and what kind of candidates they want to see in the future.
So let's say hypothetically that this blue wave comes and the Democrats take the House of Representatives. We'll even give them the Senate too in this hypothetical scenario. How do they then continue that momentum into the 2020 election?
Well, so I think you giving me the Senate, I think that makes the situation a lot different. So if they have the Senate, it becomes a little bit easier because now legislation they start in the House or they start in the Senate, it's a little bit easier to pass through the second chamber. And, you know, then you just kind of have to work with the president to find some sort of middle ground. Now, if they just win one chamber, if they win just the House or they were to win just the Senate, it becomes a lot more difficult because the Democrats are working on one line of policy and the Republicans are working on another line of policy. And it's become a lot harder to kind of reconcile those two things to make policy changes that Americans are looking for. And so if they get both chambers, then they're going to be able to have a lot more to market to voters come 2020.
Now, why before that question was asked, we just been told by the producers that the Indiana Senate race has actually just been called in favor of the Republicans. So, of course, that mathematically eliminates the Democrats' chances of taking the Senate. Yeah. They are still favored to win the House, though. So, my next question was going to be, what needs to happen for the Democrats to consider this night a success? I asked Mr. Miller about this, but from your perspective, for success, we know they can't take the Senate. But do they need to take the House for this to be a success, or do they just need to make a dent and make the House a little bit more 50-50?
I think it can kind of go both ways. I mean, of course, winning the House would be a great success. That's really showing that voters want Democrats in power and they want to give Democrats a greater ability to make change in the country. But I also think that if they weren't to win the House, the Democrats can get a little bit of standing room, because if things don't go the way that Americans want in the next 2 years, and they can kind of say, look, we gave the Republicans power, this is what happened. So I think it just kind of depends how they want to market what happens tonight and what actually results in the next 2 years before we get to 2020.
So now that it's looking like the chambers are going to be split with the Republicans in the Senate and possibly the Democrats in the House of Representatives, it's going to be very interesting to see how that pans out for the rest of the night. And now we are going to go to another major factor here, and we're going to talk to Garrett Roberts again, who is with us, standing by in Romo's here. Garrett, what is the student body saying out there?
Now? Hi, and welcome to Romo's here at the Nicholson Center. We're sorry for the technical difficulties, but we're finally back on track. In the students we interviewed, we've seen a lot of third-party support. While there's no certain third party that people were relying on, students tended to favor no party or a belief-centric primary over the current system that we have. Most people reported voting straight on the ballot, but not full support. While they may have voted straight red or straight blue, they don't support any individual candidate, but they have only two options. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Garrett. Now we're here with a couple members from the College Republicans. Thank you guys for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So, we heard the Democrats, or we heard our representative from the College Democrats. We heard Drew Miller talk, too, about the importance of the midterms for, the third parties and their parties. So, what is your importance to, or significance in this for the Republicans?
I think this is an extremely significant race for Republicans. If we want to continue what we've achieved in the last 2 years, I think it's very important that we remain in control of all three branches of the government. Obviously, we've heard that we will remain in control of the Senate, which is obviously
Very
great
good
news
news.
for Republicans. We're very happy about that. But I think this is a very significant race.
So now with control of the Senate, I'm going to pose another hypothetical to you like I did to Kristen. Let's say the Democrats take control of the House, which coming into tonight, I believe it was, they had given them a 7 out of 8 chance of doing so. How do the Republicans and President Trump continue to push their agenda with only one chamber of Congress?
So I think there is, as polarized as people, confirm that it is in this political climate right now, there are some general issues that we tend to make bipartisan progress on consistently, as in criminal justice reform, drug reform, fighting the opioid epidemic. So I think as for those issues in particular, we are certainly in good standing. As for divisive issues such as gun control and abortion, I am not exactly sure what could amount from those, and having a split House and having, as Kristen said, 2 different lines of policy that each party is starting on. So.
Well, thank you both for joining us. Unfortunately, we're going to have to throw to a quick commercial break, but don't go anywhere because we got a lot. It's still going to be a long night ahead of us as the races continue to close and they continue to come in here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Encuentra el bosque más cercano en descubreelbosque.org. El bosque, más cerca de lo que crees.
Oh, sweetie. Okay, you know what? Let's take off his sweatshirt. Get rid of pictures of him. You don't have to look at him. Goodbye, Dave.
Mom, you don't understand. He's tagged in like 400 of my posts.
I can cut out tags.
No, that's not how it works.
What is a tag?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love to share their first with you.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He knows he's a pretty big deal. How could you not love him?
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands? Yes. You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Do you want to retire like a champ? Just like legendary basketball star Uncle Drew? Don't do it like that, Uncle Drew! You're already acing the game. You've got your dream ride.
Don't be slamming my door.
Sorry about that.
You just did the same. Gotta get the boys.
Your dream vacation and your dream team. And now you can make your retirement just as legendary.
I get buckets.
Get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Planning the right amount of food is hard. The Guestimator makes it easy. Just tell it who's coming and what's for dinner. Then it tells you how much to make. And yes, it even plans for leftovers. Try it at SaveTheFood.com.
Attention travelers, next Tuesday a major hurricane will cause complete chaos throughout the city. Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency.
Attention travelers, next Tuesday a major power outage will cause complete chaos throughout the city. Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency.
Welcome back to the SCJ Election Night coverage. I'm Gage Goulding, alongside me Samuel Anthony. But before we get into that, we're going to send it over to the Connor Lamb campaign where Sonu Babu is live. And we're getting it that they have they're about to call Connor Lamb, and I believe he's going to go up on to stage and accept that victory. So while we're trying to get that feed in, we're going to keep on updating you. And there's Sonu there, and we're just going to... Okay, and
it's already very optimistic. As you can see here, the crowd is going wild because Connor Lamb just won the 17th district in Pennsylvania against Keith Rothfuss. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Sonu. Of course, Connor Lamb with that victory. And Sam, this is one of those things that we talked about. And we were just talking about this on Facebook Live. I'm not sure if you guys were following us on there. We anticipated that we were having these, in the polls, in the entry polls in the forthcoming days, or the coming days before this, excuse me, that there was a small lead for some of these candidates. But we didn't expect within 15 minutes that, some of these major outlets were calling this race. And they were calling these races super quick across Pennsylvania.
And that's right, Gage. And you saw it right at the beginning with Bob Casey and with Tom Wolf, where right off the bat, like you said, major outlets were already calling in favor of Casey and Wolf before they even really were counting the votes. And, Connor Lamb, he came out with a big lead, and now they've officially called it for him. Some big wins for the Democrats in this one. And if you take a look, and Connor Lamb winning with 61% of the vote, we're going to also look at Manchin in West Virginia. Some have began to call this one for Manchin. We have yet to get official confirmation, but right now he holds the lead. And again, Gage, another big win for Democrats right now as they continue to win some of those. But Florida continues to stay tight.
In this Florida race is the one that we were talking about. Once again, in that Facebook Live, this is something that where I believe it was four independent party candidates, and Drew Miller would be really happy to hear this, but four independent party candidates had over 100,000 votes. Now, the separation between the Democratic and the Republican candidates, Sam, do you want to guess what? It was under 100,000 votes. So these independent candidates, and you can see now that the numbers have changed a little bit, but this is crucial. These independent party candidates, these third-party candidates are making such a difference in this election, which people are calling, and I'm sure we said it before and we'll say it again, this could be bigger than the presidential race. And we're looking now, again, Texas, Cruz, once again, and this is a predominantly Republican state.
Yes.
We can agree with that. And he's trailing. So this talk of this blue wave, it's definitely hitting Pennsylvania, which is our local market, and that's what we're talking about. But it's also affecting people around the country. And you can see only 7% of precincts reporting there. But still, It's a very tight race, and that's another thing. A lot of these races, too close to call.
And one that isn't too close to call right now, Gage, is Klobuchar in Minnesota Senate. And she's going to take home the win. They're calling it right now so far with 73.44% of the vote. And again, right now, from what we're seeing, Gage, some big wins for the Democrats. Right now, it still looks like the Republicans are going to maintain hold of the Senate. But another tight race here, and this one still very early in Michigan. Not even 1% of the precincts reporting here between James and Stabenow. Definitely one that we will continue to keep you updated right now.
Of course, and this is one of those things where, you know, obviously it's only separated by a couple hundred votes, but only it says 0% of those precincts are reporting, which is obviously a really small percentage of those precincts are reporting. Now, one thing that's different in Pennsylvania this year is the districts that, whenever it comes down to breaking the congressional districts up, those have changed. Last year, earlier this year in March, we saw the Pennsylvania 18 special election, which featured Rick Saccone and Connor Lamb. But now, all of that has been flipped, turned upside down. Here's Ryan Giacobbe with more on the redistricting.
Congressman of the 18th District of Pennsylvania has decided to run for re-election, this time in the 2018 general election for the 17th District, after winning the 2018 special election against Rick Saccone and Drew Miller for the 18th District. Lamb is campaigning for the 17th District because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled in January 2018 that the districts were unconstitutionally gerrymandered in Republicans' favor. Lamb filed for re-election shortly after the districts were redrawn. Lamb's home, before the districts were redrawn, fell in the 14th District. After the districts were redrawn, Lamb's home fell in the 17th District, which is why Lamb is running for re-election. Lamb got on the ballot with 4,500 petition signatures over the Pennsylvania 1,000 signature requirement, all of this according to USA Today. After the new districts were redrawn, Republican lawmakers in Pennsylvania have been challenging the new district boundaries, which have been ongoing but are currently resulting in failing efforts, according to KDKA. I'm Ryan Giacobbe, reporting for SCJ Election Night coverage.
Hey, thank you, Ryan. We appreciate it. And, of course, this is obviously a much bigger story than what we could fit into that. And there was a lot of underlying with that gerrymandering. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to send it over to Greg Sutton. Greg is our social media correspondent. He's taking a look at everything that's happening on the social world. Greg.
Thank you, Gage and Sam. But, guys, social media is still playing a really big factor here. A lot of things like the Florida gubernatorial race coming through here. We're getting to see a lot of things that people are posting. People have been posting why they voted today, why they feel like it's their duty to do so, and there's pictures of the White House. People everywhere right now really just letting the world know why they're voting and who, or not who, but like the reason they voted today. But as we can see here, people really into this election. It's a big deal trying to figure out how the House and the Senate are going to be set up for the next 2 years with Trump still in office for another 2 years. But it's going to be really exciting to see how social media plays a part after more and more races are called and things like that. But it's just, social media has always been buzzing, and it will continue to until the race is called completely, until everything's figured out, until all the final numbers are released. But it can, some people are just saying there's businesses posting things between red and blue bagels, such as we just seen. But it's just exciting to see how social media plays a role in every one of the elections that we've covered so far in the past 2 years. So with all of that in hand, Gage, Sam, it's really been exciting to watch these things develop over the night, and it's going to be exciting to see how it develops as the night continues as well.
Of course, thank you, Greg. And we're going to go right into these races that we just talked about. And we might be repeating ourselves here, but I don't think we can really get across how crucial it is that they called these races within minutes of the polls closing in Pennsylvania. We're talking about Tom Wolf over Scott Wagner, and we're talking about Bob Casey over Lou Barletta. Now, let's keep in mind, in Erie, this was about a month ago, we traveled to Erie, Pennsylvania, where over 10,000 people showed up to the Erie Insurance Arena, Sam, and it was electric. There was President Donald Trump, who campaigned with Lou Barletta and Scott Wagner. And we're looking here now, as you can see on your screen, Governor Wolf, he's the projected winner with 67.71% of the vote in Wagner. I mean, it's really not even comparable when we talk about these close races.
Well, and something important to talk about involving this race was really the lack of rhetoric, between the two. There was one 45-minute debate. Typically, you see 3 full-length debates, but in this case, it was just one, and it was one that was controversial in the sense that Alex Trebek, who was the moderator, ended up talking more than the actual candidates. A a little bit of controversy between Casey and Barletta. And Gage, you can add a little bit more insight to this, but there were some ads that Senator Casey put out that Lou Barletta found a little bit offensive, I believe.
Yeah, so, there was this ad that Bob Casey put out that was, he said it wasn't targeting Lou Barletta's grandson who had a disease. I believe it was cancer. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it was cancer. And he asked Casey in his campaign to say, hey, can you take this down? Like, this is something that affects my family directly. And that right there, kind of shows how tight and how gritty these politics are. I mean, these people are going right at, the throat here. And we're getting Luke Yostin. He is in Sewickley, and he will have more for us coming in. We're trying to get that feed up right now. But once again, we're still talking about how close these races are. And it's really crazy. And like I said, we're talking about earlier, if you guys follow that on Twitter, there's a lot of close races, but not really one here in Pennsylvania.
No, and
we're gonna go to fourth term in his short career in Congress. But for right now, I'm looking at the New York Times, and they are predicting that with nearly 60% of the polling places reporting, Lamb has a 60-40 lead on Rothfuss. That seems like it's time to project a winner. I don't know, but we'll see how the night unfolds for us. Still a lot of places to call in. It's going to get really close really quickly. But more importantly, Donald Trump did tweet about Keith Rothfuss, gave him his full support, and I quote the tweet here, Congressman Keith Rothfuss continues to do a great job for the people of Pennsylvania. Keith is strong on crime, the border, and our Second Amendment, loves our military and vets. He has my total endorsement, end quote. Now, again, we were here, we talked to some people, we tried to get some people to come with us, but nobody is open for an interview here at the time. Very, very interesting environment. A lot of people still hanging around. A lot of people kind of had noticed the inevitable happening, though. Lamb looks like to be the winner of this race. But still a lot of people behind me enjoying their nights, enjoying their time. But again, very quiet, very low energy. Total transformation from what happened when we first came on, when people were pouring in and people were excited and people were lively. And really, since Lamb went up more than 20 points on Rothfuss with even just the littlest of margins, smallest number of voting places to be reporting 14%, they came in. But again, back to Gage and Sam on the desk for more of this election night coverage. We might see you later, we might not. But again, back to Sam and Gage.
Thank you, Luke. And real quick, as he was talking there, we just got this in, and we're checking on Twitter right now constantly. This is from the Associated Press. They just tweeted that breaking news, Democrat Connor Lamb wins re-election in U.S. House and PA 17. And like I said, this is the new PA 17, which was the old PA 18, which featured, of course, Rick Saccone, Connor Lamb, and Drew Miller, who is here with us, which we'll be talking to coming up after a break that we're going to be taking here shortly. But we do have Sonu Babu coming in. She's going to be, we're trying to get that feed in for you guys right now. But once again, we just got that in. That's confirmed. The Associated Press confirms that. So all of what we thought, and once again, that stuff coming from 15 seconds is now confirmed, and that's what we know. And you can see Sonu coming in on your screen here. Sonu is going to have an interview for us. Sonu, what do you have out there at the Connor Lamb camp?
We're here with Mary Beth. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
How do you feel about Connor Lamb's win?
I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled. He's my senator. He's all of our senators, and I'm just so proud to represent him.
And why do you personally support Connor Lamb?
He's a refreshing new face to politics, one that we need. He's honest, he's decent, he's moral. He's bringing decency back to the American people.
And what specific policies do you support?
He's for health care, he's for nurses, he's for safe common sense gun reform. He's for all. He's willing to reach across the aisle and work with everybody. I just think he's a refreshing new face that we need desperately in our country now.
Thank you so much for your time. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Sonu. Of course, great stuff coming from there, and we will have Drew Miller whenever we come back, Sam.
And that's right. We're going to have Drew Miller, like you said, Gage, and he's going to talk about some of these results that have been coming in, sort of the significance of those, especially with a candidate like Connor Lamb, who's a little bit more towards the center in terms of the Democratic Party. So you're not going to want to miss that when we come back on SCJ election night.
Real quick, and just to get you updated, right before we go to break, just breaking AP Politics, tweeting out Republican Tom Marino wins re-election in the 12th Pennsylvania Congressional District. Excuse me, we'll be right back.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Hey guys, welcome back to the SCJ election night coverage. Gage Goulding with Sam Anthony and Drew Miller, but first, Garrett Roberts. Oh, we apologize for technical difficulties. Garrett, he's working real hard to get back with that feed right now, but we're here with Drew Miller. More importantly, we're here with Drew Miller, who ran in PA 18 last year, which Connor Lamb just won moments ago that we confirmed with you just before we went to break. So, you know, kind of tell us about, I really want to know more about that experience. And you, as you tweeted out before, you know, as this whole PA 18 was going down, that you were going to wake up the next day as the most hated man in America.
Yes, and let me just start off by saying congratulations to Connor Lamb for his decisive win in this election. But yeah, going back to your point, that was the most exciting night of my entire life, and I had been predicting that I would have been the spoiler on that particular special election that took place. And indeed, when I woke up in the morning, I was, you know, on that particular evening, on March 13th, I was an unknown. Nobody heard about me, and then at one point, Wolf Blitzer said my name on CNN. I believe I talked to you guys that night, and then my phone was ringing off the hook for people who wanted to talk to me because they did the numbers, they saw the math, and they realized that I was the reason that, you know, Rick Saccone had lost and Connor Lamb had won. So.
And now looking at the race, you know, tonight, Connor Lamb against Keith Rothfuss, both of them being incumbents. The interesting thing with Connor Lamb, it's something that, you know, a lot of people typically, you know, I guess have liked, and clearly they voted, you know, 61% in his favor. He's a little bit more towards the middle in terms of Democrats. What sort of benefit do you think that had, especially, you know, in an area kind of like Pittsburgh?
You know what, I grew up in that particular district, Hampton Township, which is the 17th district now, and he had to have moved towards the middle. If he came out there, you know, talking about a progressive agenda or some sort of like single payer, you know, health care, there's no way that he ever would have won that election. So, you know, he had to come out. The fact that he was a Marine, I think, was on his side. The fact that he talked about, you know, potentially getting rid of Nancy Pelosi, that worked in his favor. I just think that moving towards the middle was something he had to do, especially in this district, which tends to be more Republican than Democrat. So.
Of course, and we're going to take a quick break from this conversation. We're going to come back because we have a lot more to talk about. But Sonu Babu is in with Connor Lamb, excuse me, at the camping with Connor Lamb, and has Donnie Iris right now. So we're working to get that feed with Donnie Iris. I'm not making this up, I promise you. Donnie Iris is with our very own Sony Babu. Like I said, he's at the Connor Lamb camp. So we're going to get you that feed.
Amazing performance tonight. I'm here with Donnie Iris. Tell me how you feel about the election and the energy
Give me the
tonight.
name on the independent.
Oh, it's crazy in here. I love it. We're
Maine.
having so much fun on the stage. Everybody's getting into it. It's just so much fun. I'm having a blast.
And do you feel confident about this election currently?
I do. It looks real good. It seems like it's looking better and better every moment. So, yeah, it's really cool. And I'm so happy for Connor. He's such a great guy. And, yeah, I'm very happy for him.
So why do you personally support Connor Lamb?
I met him maybe 6 months ago, and I thought he was just a great guy. And I think he can do the job. He's well educated. He's a Marine. Just seems like he's a rock star. I love him.
And what policies do you support or are passionate about in his campaign?
I'm not a big fan of all this. Leave all the people out. Build the wall. I mean, come on. That's crazy.
Here right now. Thank you so much, Donnie Iris. Thank you so much. Back over to you guys.
That was Sonu Babu at the Connor Land Camp. That was also Donnie Iris. But now, Garrett Roberts.
Hi, I'm here at Romo's with Morgan. Morgan, did you vote today?
No, I did not.
Why is that?
I did not vote because I think that in order to vote, somebody should be informed, and I think that making an uninformed vote is worse than not voting at all, because you shouldn't just walk up to the ballot and, like, vote for somebody random. So I don't think it's good. Well, I think it's okay, but I don't think it's that good for, like, all these people to be posting on social media, like, go vote, go vote, go vote. Because all these people will just go because of the peer pressure, and they'll be uninformed and just vote for somebody random.
Now, do you think it would be a better idea to vote if you had all the information in front of you, like you could take the polls on your phone?
I think so. I think that if these people that are, like, posting on social media, like, go vote, would, like, post a link, because I know there is different websites that, like, list, like, all the different candidates and, like, their political ideologies. Like, if you're going to post, like, vote today on your social media, like, if you post a link to give information about the candidates, I think that that would be a much better decision.
All right, thank you. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Garrett. Good to finally hear from you. So while we were on those two quick interviews there, we just learned that a Senate race in Maine, a candidate, I should say, by the name of Angus King has 55% of the votes. Senate race, Maine, 55%. Independent party, may I add. How does that sound to you?
That sounds amazing. This is my dream. This is why I go to bed. I go to bed and I hope that I wake up in the morning and live in America where independents and third parties are winning more and more races. I think actually we're going to see it happen. As we mentioned before in earlier segments, the Republicans and Democrats are becoming divided. They're becoming more polarized. I think people want to get back to the middle. I think the only way to get back to the middle is to have these independent candidates, on the ballots. So.
And we're seeing this graphic on the screen right now. Very low percentage of precincts reporting, but this isn't 1 or 2 votes as you see whenever it's a low percentage of precincts reporting. Sam, this is 52,000 votes for this independent by the name of King. You see this man right there, and literally minuscule votes for Republicans and Democrats. This is something that's incredible. This is something in Senate too. This isn't a low-level office that we're talking about. This is a higher-level office with massive amounts of votes.
Well, and if you're looking at it in the way that these votes are coming in, it's typically you have these precincts that are slowly coming in, and what that tells me is that there's some precincts where most of the votes are going towards an independent candidate, which again, it starts with small areas like that. You saw it in the presidential election in Utah. There was a huge following for an independent candidate in Utah, and he had no shot of winning the actual election, But he had a shot at winning the state of Utah. And again, I mean, I don't know if you'd agree with me, Drew, but it starts with small stuff like that. And, you know, again, you start seeing more and more of these candidates getting more and more notoriety, and then, you know, all of a sudden people see that this is a legitimate option.
Right, you know, and as I mentioned before, what people were noticing is that in this particular election, there were, you know, third-party candidates on the ballot you don't usually see. And there's a reason why that's happening, is because about 2 years ago in 2016, there was a court case that came out. It was the Constitution Party of Pennsylvania v. Pedro Cortes, who was the Secretary of State at the time. The third parties in Pennsylvania sued the Secretary of State and said that what he was doing was unconstitutional by, you know, requiring all of these third parties to get literally 30 and sometimes 40,000 signatures to be on the same ballot that Republicans and Democrats only needed 2,500 signatures to be on. And so what was happening is that was keeping third parties off the ballot. The courts even said this, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, that said that, you know, yeah, this was actually working to keep those third parties off the ballot. And in fact, a third party hadn't been on the ballot in a statewide election in 10 years. So they said that this was actually working to essentially disenfranchise those third-party voters who really wanted to like have their voice heard.
Of course, and this is one of those things, like you said, this is a dream come true for you, that you wake up every day and you hope that you hear news like this.
Right.
And what's really shocking to me is we saw that it's less than 1% of the, it's less than 1% of the precincts reporting, but unless, you know, 1 or 2 complete precincts voted for this independent candidate, that is an incredible amount, and that's I think something that we see even with early voting. We're seeing that change. We're seeing more people come out. But we're going to take a look at the maps now, and we're gonna try to see what is going on in Tennessee. Let's try to get that up for you before we go over to social media correspondent Greg Sutton, and we're trying to get that graphic up for you. All right, and there it is, and we just see that the projected winner is the Republican Blackburn, and you can see once again that's another tight race. It's tighter than whenever we talk about, you know, these Connor Lamb and the other elections that happen here in Pennsylvania, where they're just kind of sweeping right through. Here's a look at Utah, where this projected winner, once again, really tight. This is not a very far-fetched election.
And Gage, if you're looking at these tight races specifically, again, these are the late races that Democrats, if they wanted to take control of the Senate, or, you know, again, just keep it closer, they needed to win those tight races. But again, Mitt Romney pulling it out, he's going to be called there. And then in Tennessee as well, with Blackburn getting that win for the Republican Party, it's looking more and more like Republicans will keep control of the Senate, which, again, that was predicted. That was what the polls told us. But again, you know, as we learned from 2016, you have to kind of see it to believe it.
Of course, and you're seeing on the bottom of your screen right now, Tom Wolf with 67% of the votes, Scott Wagner with 32%. And we just talked about, just a little bit ago, about how he was campaigning in Erie. And I can't get over how massive that campaign event was. There was thousands of people inside the arena, and there was thousands more outside. It was incredible. Here's a look at Montana. Once again, another tight race. These are not blowouts that we've been seeing here in Pennsylvania. So I don't know if there's something special going on with Pennsylvania right now, but Democrats have the lead there, 54% with Tester over Rosendale. And you can still see that graphic on the bottom of your screen there. Connor Lamb over Rothfuss right now, 61 to 38, and we already have that confirmed and called that Connor Lamb has that victory. But this Montana Senate, you can see on the top of your screen, less than 1% reporting. These are precincts that have just closed recently. Remember that they are in a complete different world, as in time zones from where we are on the East Coast. So we're going to see a lot of that continue to roll in. But right now, we're going to go see what Greg Sutton in social media has for us.
Thanks, guys. And as we see here, a lot of projected winners scrolling across the screen right now from every state around the country. A lot of things, people reaching out to kind of put their, like I said earlier, their reason why they voted. One of the posts that I seen earlier was a parent posting with a picture of their I voted sticker with their child in the background, and the caption on the post was, "I vote for him." And sometimes the things that we really don't talk about are the future things that could happen with the things that we do with these midterm elections. So it's kind of nice to start seeing people really thinking about their kids and what they're voting for. But we also get to see posts of people just excited it's election day, this midterm race. We've seen that art piece there of the Statue of Liberty. But it's just really exciting. People are starting to get their pets more involved, as I talked a little bit earlier. But Florida really excited about trying to end greyhound racing. That's one of the things that I've seen scroll across the social media feed as we've been looking at this throughout the night. And a lot of people just putting stickers a lot of places. There's that post I was talking about earlier with the sun in his background, and somebody using Willie Nelson as their I voted sticker poster. But the parent one's really one of the ones that makes me really think about what really happens after the election. We think about making our choices and trying to get our people that we voted for into office, but more importantly, we have to think about the consequences of that, and that's why we have to be informed voters and everything else. So as we keep scrolling here, we just keep seeing some of the things we've seen a little bit earlier. We've seen a couple updates of the projected winners, people using filters from Snapchat and stuff like that, just to make everything cool and exciting and just keep everything excited. But as we keep scrolling, it's just exciting to see how people use their political views and how they voted, and trying to use that in such ways to make social media kind of exciting, not just I voted today, you should vote, but using their pets. We see Bernie Sanders visiting local shops around the country. But it's just exciting to see how people are using social media over the day. This one's really emotional. You're saying move to vote was to save humanity, which is also true because there's a Greyhound one as well. But we're going to jump to a real quick commercial break here, and when we come back, we'll have a lot more to update you guys on at home, and you're not going to want to miss it.
A full life, measured in seats, starts with the right ones early on. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Learn how to prevent deaths and injuries by using the right car seat for your child's age and size.
In your new role, we help you help. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who once took care of you.
Disaster tips from the objects left behind.
My home wasn't insured, but you can check your insurance policy now to make sure you're covered. Oh.
My savings are lost, but you can put money aside and plan for unexpected disaster costs.
We're lost forever, but you can scan important documents now so they survive.
For more tips on how to prepare, visit ready.gov.
Thank you guys, and welcome back to the SCJ election night coverage. We're going to jump right into Ted Cruz, and he just took the lead back here in Texas. I'm going to try to look at this monitor here and get you the numbers on that. Ted Cruz just won, so we do have that, and that is breaking right now. So we're trying to get that to you. But we're also going to take a look at this New York as well. Youngest woman in New York to be elected to the Senate, or excuse me, Congress. Her name's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm sorry if I just botched that number.
Ocasio-Cortez.
Ocasio-Cortez. I'm sorry.
That's what I'm here for.
That's what we have, Sam. So that just happened. Also out of Michigan, the first Muslim elected to Congress, I believe. It's Rashida Tlaib. I might have botched that as well. So we're going to look at that. And we're going to have more on that in depth. These are landmark elections here. This is just as big as what's happening in Maine right now with that independent getting that massive, the push behind that independent. They're 55% of the votes. So we're looking now at Michigan. Excuse me, you can see Republican James pulling ahead of Strabe now. Right now it's 51%. And only, keep in mind, this is only 21%. Of the precincts are reporting. That's only 21%. I also just got a breaking news alert from AP, the Associated Press right now, that Democrat Susan Wild wins the election in PA's 7th Congressional District. She's going to the House for that one, and that's in PA's 7th Congressional District. So we have that as well. But once again, close races everywhere else. And I know we keep on saying this, but I don't think this is so important. Close races everywhere else within 5%, and these numbers aren't fully reported. You know, as you can see, Arizona coming in once again. This is crazy how close these races are.
And Gage, this is where the fun starts here. This is where you're starting to see with these West Coast polls closing that you're starting to see who is going to win the House and who's going to win the Senate. And these tight races are the ones that are going to define that. And again, we're going to keep a close eye on this Florida race. 98% of precincts reporting, and Scott narrowly holding out the lead on Nelson right now. And again, you know, we'll keep talking about the fact that the independent vote significantly impacting that race. But definitely something to keep an eye on there. And these close races continue to define that. And that's the thing, is we talk about the fact that you could discuss potentially who wins the House, who wins the Senate tonight. But if these races stay so close, you may not see till later. Again, we saw that with Lamb in the 18th district in that special election. They had to wait between him and Saccone until the very next day because it was so tight.
Of course, and we just hear now that the Republicans, are expected to pick up 4 to 5 seats. And I also just got another breaking news alert from Associated Press. Guy Reschenthaler wins election to the U.S. House in PA's 14th congressional district. That's Guy Reschenthaler. I'm sorry, the names, we've got to get better on those, but Guy Reschenthaler to the 14th congressional district, and we have that graphic up right now. Now, this is, of course, only 7% reporting, but this is Associated Press that's bringing this news to you. So their numbers might be a little bit more ahead of ours. They might have a little bit more information that we do, but that is confirmed that they do have that. And that's, once again, that's another big win.
Exactly. Definitely something to continue to keep an eye on. And we're going to keep an eye on these, but we're going to go to a quick commercial break. So when we come back, again, lots of tight races here. Gage and I are going to be with you the whole way, keeping up with all these races and who's going to take control of the House and the Senate, only on SCJ Election Night here on RMU-TV.
Your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Encuentra el bosque más cercano en descubreelbosque.org. El bosque, más cerca de lo que crees.
Oh, sweetie. Okay, you know what? Let's take off his sweatshirt. Get rid of pictures of him. You don't have to look at him. Goodbye, Dave.
Mom, you don't understand. He's tagged in like 400 of my posts.
I can cut out tags.
No, that's not how it works.
What is a tag?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care would love to share their first with you.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He knows he's a pretty big deal. How could you not love him?
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars. Really tall. I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands? Yes. You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
Do you want to retire like a champ? Just like legendary basketball star Uncle Drew? Don't do it like that, Uncle Drew! You're already acing the game. You've got your dream ride.
Don't be slamming my door.
Sorry about that.
You just did the same. Gotta get the boys.
Your dream vacation and your dream team. And now you can make your retirement just as legendary.
I get buckets.
Get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Planning the right amount of food is hard. The Guestimator makes it easy. Just tell it who's coming and what's for dinner. Then it tells you how much to make. And yes, it even plans for leftovers. Try it at SaveTheFood.com.
Attention travelers, next Tuesday a major hurricane will cause complete chaos throughout the city. Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency.
Attention travelers, next Tuesday a major power outage will cause complete chaos throughout the city. Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency.
Welcome back to the SCJ Election Night coverage right here on RMU-TV, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Gage Goulding, Sam Anthony back here. But first, we're going to take a look at the race in, excuse me, we're not taking that race first. We actually have Luke Yost on the phone.
That's right.
Luke, can you hear us? I'm guessing he can hear us. So let's take a quick look at this race in in Kansas, okay? This is the first time that an LGBT Native American has been elected to the office. He won over a representative. I don't know, Luke, can you hear us? I hear that you're with us now.
Yes, I can hear you guys.
I do not believe that Luke is with us. But anyway, going back to this LGBT story. This man is Democrat candidate Sharice Davids. He won over Kansas Republican candidate Representative Kevin Yoder. He lost to the LGBT Native American. First time in Kansas. That's, once again, another one of those landmark election results that we were talking about today. We have these massive results. We just talked about one in Michigan where the first Muslim was elected, and then the youngest woman in New York. These are elections. These are results that we're getting that we haven't seen before, and that this is changing. Once again, I can't stop talking about Maine. So, you know, we just talked to Drew Miller, and this is one of those crazy things where there's 55% of those people voting for Maine. We're going to get those numbers updated for you in a little bit. But Luke Yost, you're on the phone with me now, right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Well, we can't hear you, Luke Yost, but I know that you're with us on the phone and in spirit. So kind of tell me what the atmosphere is there. What are we working with?
It was very calm and quiet until Keith Rothfus walked in. When he walked in, he came into a hero's welcome after the race was already pretty much over at that point. Still came in. He hugged some of the crowd. Some of his family is here. His wife's here. His parents are here. But more importantly, he gave his speech. And he talked about his speech. He talked about, you know, how great Conor Lamb is. He endorsed Conor Lamb. Not really endorsed him. Gave him a little bit of a you know, kind of a good nod. And then really what I thought was interesting was he talked about how in the past 2 years he's really changed the way this country is run, and how you know, President Trump has changed some of the key aspects of this country, whether it's immigration or economy or healthcare, whatever it is, some of these key issues. We talked about that. And he also reflected on the mass shooting in Pittsburgh recently. He talked about how much his family supports him and I joked about how his wife might run for the next one, but probably not. She kind of shot that down real quick. But yeah, very somber when he was giving his speech. Very quiet, very kind of you could feel the defeat in the room. But now people have gathered together. People are talking to each other. Really, it's kind of like a family atmosphere, I guess is the best word to put it right now. Family atmosphere here. A lot of people just kind of meeting and greeting. People that may not know each other, people who do know each other. It's very interesting to see all these faces and all these people that just moments ago were sitting down having dinner, but now are talking to Keith Rothfuss and talking to some of these other people, some of these other congressional people that are here, that are sitting here. But yeah, this has been a great thing to see. Great experience all in all.
Of course, Luke, and that's one of those things that we were just talking about is the energy. You say up and down, then up and then back down again. In this race that was kind of called quickly here. So talk about the people that you got to interact with there and a little bit more about your experience at the camp.
Yeah. So when we walked in, the energy we got here early. Not a lot of people were here yet. But the energy was kind of positive. I'd say a lot of people were excited to see what the results were going to be. I was too. Admittingly, but yeah, this place changed real quick on a dime when the Pittsburgh media broke that Lamb has projected to win the seat. It changed drastically. It went from being a quiet dinner to more of it was a quiet dinner. People were talking, but even then, after the seat was almost declared a winner. Really quiet, really somber, and then when Rothfuss walked in, it was a hero's welcome. Congratulations all around. He's still walking around in the crowd now, congratulating people that worked for him, the people that he interacted with on the campaign. Again, it was very quiet and somber during his session speech. But yeah, it was very. But right now, it's a little live here than it was before.
And Luke, you talked about the mood here in terms of a lot of high energy, and my question to you is throughout this, despite the fact that, and we'll talk more about that later, but we actually have Garrett Roberts back on campus of Robert Morris University, and Garrett continuing to catch the mood on campus. And while we wait to get Garrett Roberts here again, Luke talking about the experience here, and again, the mood was high despite the fact that the polls may have not shown that. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. But we do have Garrett Roberts, who, yet again, has another guest with him. And Garrett, what do you have over there?
Ken Krawchuk for governor. It's a libertarian. I voted for Lou Barletta, and I also voted for Keith Rothfuss.
Oh, that's good. And why did you vote for these people?
Well, I voted for them. I voted for Krawchuk because I wanted him to get to 3 or 5% since it was likely Tom Wolf was going to win. And I voted for Lou Barletta because Bob Casey has to go. He pretends to be pro-life, and he constantly votes with Planned Parenthood and for Planned Parenthood, so we can't have that. And I voted for Keith Rothfuss because of his record.
And the polls are currently showing that Lamb is in the lead. How does this make you feel?
I mean, it was figured that he was going to win, but on principle, I couldn't vote for Lamb.
All right, thank you for the interview.
Yeah, thank you.
Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you, Garrett. I didn't mean to steal it from you there. Thank you, Garrett. Garrett always has some of the best interviews. I don't know where he gets these people from, but Garrett, awesome work out there.
Yeah, and you know what? We're going to go to a quick break, but when we come back, Gage, we have a lot of interesting things going on. We're going to take a look at the map, kind of see how, again, everything's unfolding across the United States of America as these results continue to pile in. And please do not go away as we're getting closer and closer to deciding who is going to take control of the Senate and the House here in the United States of America. Important midterm election. Don't go anywhere. SCJ Election Night on Robert Morris University TV.
Because of you, I felt hopeless. I know it was a joke, but it still hurt me.
Because of you, I felt wanted and not alone in this world.
Because you said hi to me on the first day of school, I felt included, and I knew that I was going to be okay.
Today. Good. I'm here to talk about how with technology you can make amazing worlds. Come with me. My team and I bring the Halo world to life.
Is that you?
That is me. I wasn't a math genius and I knew nothing about coding. But you guys do. You guys have the power to change things.
I want your job.
I want you to have my job.
Hey, welcome back to the SCJ election night coverage. Sam, you got some breaking but not breaking news. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So again, as these results have come in, we have it official here, and it is that the Republicans retain control of the Senate, and the Democrats have taken control of the House. This is the first time the Democrats have controlled the House in 8 years. And again, a switch that was projected, but now we can say officially has happened. If you look at the map here, you can see specifically how this unfolded in the Senate. And Gage, you know, again, some tight races, specifically Texas, the most expensive race, Senate race actually in U.S. history, going in favor of Ted Cruz, tightly contested Cruz, taking that 1% difference, and actually 1% going to an independent. And we talk about that, you know, with Drew Miller earlier. We've talked about that all night, how those independents can make the difference here. But Gage, we also have Florida, which hasn't been officially called, but we're getting closer to 100%.
Of course, and that's the thing, and I know Drew Miller's over there right now. I can see him. I know he's excited hearing all this independent talk. He's smiling over there. And that's so important, and you're seeing in Montana right now, another close race. It's separated about 10%. Tester over Rosendale. Democrats look like they're going to get that as well. And bringing in North Dakota now. This one probably more separated. This is more of a Pennsylvania-style race today. Kramer, the Republican, has the foothold there. But also, this is 1% reporting. Here's New Mexico. Wow, another one. Drew, are you looking at this, Drew? He's over there right now. 15%. His microphone's on, but 15% going to the independent. This is less than 1% reporting. But Sam, this is monumental. This is more than we've seen in a long time. I would even go as far as saying ever. And Drew will be able to clarify that for us, obviously, more. But these independent votes counting more now than
Democrats have the House. We still don't know by what margin. And in terms of, you know, making changes and in terms of what the Trump administration is going to be able to do moving forward, especially with, you know, Trump hinting earlier that there's going to be a cabinet switch up as well. That all comes in the margin here. So if you're Republicans, despite losing the House, what you're trying to do is damage control right now, and that's the same for Democrats in the Senate. You're trying to keep that as tight as possible so that, you know, again, you can control as much as possible right now. And so, again, as much as these are decided, you got to follow those key races. And right now, yes.
Real quick, and I'd like to give you guys these breaking news alerts as they come in. Before we go to Greg Sutton in social, he's over there. I know he wants his time, but Associated Press just breaking. Democrat Madeline Dean wins for the U.S. House in the PA 4th Congressional District. And with that, on to Gregory Sutton.
Thanks, guys. And as I've been over here while you guys have been talking the whole time here, I've been over here checking Twitter, keeping everything updated on my side. And a lot of things that we're seeing right now is just a lot of congratulatory tweets and posts over social media. We've also seen a lot more congratulatory things along with a lot of things, people getting kind of emotional, things we're not going to quite share, but a lot of emotions flowing right now with the deciding of the Senate and the House, guys. A lot of people are kind of upset with some of the way the voting has gone, as I kind of expected here. But as we keep going through social media, there's things that are really exciting to see. I mean, I'm always excited to see the dogs getting involved with things, and there's a post that's going around right now. It's a Siberian Husky with a I voted sticker on its nose. I hope it comes through again so I can show you guys. It makes me really excited. But as they were talking about independent vote, it's really exciting to see the independent party playing a lot bigger factor in politics. It's showing that there is a third option. You always have to vote Republican or Democrat, but you also have that third option to kind of stray away from traditional choices. But social media is absolutely going wild. There's that Statue of Liberty art. We see it again. They said the perfect art for the night of election. And actually, the way they got their information about the Kansas senator that got elected was through me, through social media. I was just kind of excited to be able to help them out a little bit with their breaking coverage over there on the desk. But just a lot of congratulation things here as we see Rashida Tlaib getting her congratulatory post through Facebook, that one. This stuff's getting a little old now. We're trying to get a little bit more updated information for you guys. But it's exciting to see how this election's panning out, especially so late with the votes being counted and everything else. It's exciting to see how social media is still playing a part in all of it. And it's just, pardon me, Spanish language in here with some of the posts, just showing that it's not just Americans that speak English that are involved in this. It's everybody that lives in America, whether you speak Spanish or English, and it's just exciting to see how that's really panning out. And we're still flipping through some of these posts of people making sure that everybody that they follow and everybody that follows them is going out and making sure that their votes are counted. They're making their decisions on the day and making sure what they choose is what they believe in wholeheartedly. Apparently Mothers Rising are voting, which is exciting. More pictures in front of the White House, just giving more emotion and power to this movement of the midterm election, not only here in Pennsylvania, but nationwide. This is a big one here, trying to get control of the House and the Senate, but those are already decided, so those are kind of out of the way. So now it's just your personal decisions trying to play a role, making sure who you voted for and the ideals that they shared with you are going through on everything. But social media absolutely having I would say, immense factor in this election, these midterms, and it's just going to continue to grow more and more from year to year, from election to election, whether that be local or national. So as I keep looking through social media, whether that be Twitter or Facebook, these guys over there, Gage, Sam, and Drew, are all going to make sure that you're updated right now.
Thank you, Greg. And we're going to start right off the bat. We have a couple topics we want to talk about real quick. And one of them is going to be this race between Jeremy Schaefer and this is going to be in the 38th district, excuse me. Yes. So we're going to come to that in a minute. But first, let's talk about, this is a special race between Rothfuss and Lamb. We knew it was special, but it's the only race in the country across all 50 states that features two incumbents. How incredible is that?
Amazing, actually. I knew it was going to be interesting as soon as I heard that Lamb was going to be running in Rothfuss's district, what was typically his district. And this is all due to the redistricting. And when I was running, I kept saying this is going to be a really interesting race, because what's going to happen is whoever wins this 18th congressional district race, the special election back in March, they're going to be in office for about 8 months, and then they have to go and try to rerun again. And in this instance, I think that Lamb did the absolutely correct thing to try to run in the 17th congressional district. I don't know that he necessarily would have won, where Reschenthal was, which was essentially the old 18th congressional district. So.
And my next question involving, Lamb and Rothfuss is, again, like you said, Lamb made the decision to go into the 17th district, and that paid off for him. If you're Keith Rothfuss, what is your next move politically now with this redistricting? It kind of changes the dynamic, and what's the next plan? I would guess.
I think maybe he is done with the public life, and he's going to probably go back into the private sector. I saw this coming from like a long time ago, just because I think with Rothfuss, he just had become stagnant. He wasn't doing anything interesting. He had been in office for a while. I think someone like Lamb came in, a younger guy, middle of the road type of a Democrat, and I think that was something that this district was particularly looking for. So I don't know that we're going to see Rothfuss, in politics again.
Of course, and looking at what we just said we were going to come back to was Jeremy Schaefer and Lindsey Williams in the 38th district. They are neck and neck right now. I'm looking at a tweet sent out from another station saying it's just way too close to call right now, 49 to 50%.
Right.
That's they're neck and neck.
And what's interesting is that this is also the same area. It's a smaller portion of the what would be the 17th congressional district. This is going to be the PA 38th district, the Senate district. What's interesting is that this used to actually be a Republican stronghold, because what is now the 38th district used to be essentially the 40th district. So that was Jane Orey. After Jane Orey became Randy Vlahovic, who I knew personally. I never thought that he'd be defeated then he got defeated by Jeremy Schaefer, and now it's neck and neck, and I think we might actually see Lindsey Williams win this one. And when I talk to that's where my family's from, is this 38th district. When I talk to my friends and family from them, no one's on the fence. Everyone is either for Jeremy Schaefer or for Lindsey Williams. So it's going to be a really, really close one to watch.
Of course, and we're going to kind of switch gears now, and we're going back to this. I'm looking at this live from Associated Press. Angus King, the independent, 104,000 votes. He's a U.S. Senate. He's also, like I said, the independent. And looking at the other two candidates, Eric Brakely and Zach Ringelstein. Ringelstein is Democrat. He has under 20,000 votes. He's at 19,800. And Eric Brakely, he's Republican with 66,900. A considerable lead for an independent in the Senate race in Maine. And these numbers keep getting bigger, but they're getting bigger in favor of the independent, which is something that we haven't seen before.
Right, yeah, and I think that we might see more of that in the future. I'm not particularly surprised that it began with Maine. I think if we were gonna see it from any state, it would be Maine or Vermont, states that really do take personal liberty very seriously. So I'm not really shocked, but I am pleasantly surprised, because this is someone that we never really even heard of going into tonight, and now tomorrow morning he might be a major news story if it keeps going in his favor.
And something interesting definitely to continue to keep looking at is, again, as this 2018 midterm election, and I don't want to pretend like we're thinking too soon here, but the conversation is that 2020 election coming up, and in terms of, again, you're talking about independents getting their more names out there. You've seen Bernie Sanders for a really long time now, and now Angus King in Maine. In terms of the 2020 election, where a lot of things could be different. Actually, for independents, again, what's I guess like the goal?
I think the goal for independents is to let people know that there are more than just two options. It's amazing to me when I go out and talk to people that they realize that they have more than just a Republican or a Democratic option to choose from. And I think when they hear what the other parties have to offer, they come on board, just because I think people right now are really tired. They realize that the Republicans and Democrats, the parties themselves have become too powerful. They don't listen to the voters anymore. It's all about what can the party do. There's so much money behind them that I think that the voice of the voter is getting lost. So I think that we might see that in this next 2020 election. I think there's going to be basically two stories that come out. It's going to be, hey, I want to make my voice heard, or the Democrats and Republicans are again going to push this message of it's us versus them. This is the most important election ever. We need every vote that we can get. If you vote for a third party, that's a wasted vote. And I think that what we're seeing from tonight, what I show people is that your vote is never a wasted vote. Every single vote matters. And I think that what these independents and these libertarians, these Green Party members are doing is they're sending a message to Washington. And I think that the one message I would like to say to people who are thinking about voting third party is that if you want to send a really clear message to Washington, you don't vote for Republican or Democrat. You vote libertarian, independent, some sort of third party. That's the biggest message you can send to Washington.
Absolutely, and we're gonna take a look at this map here, and we're seeing all these dynamic different elections, these results coming in from around the nation that are showing, like I said, in this one I'm still tracking very closely. I'm really hung up on it. The numbers just got reported, 30% with Angus King in Maine, but we're going to take a look at Maine. There it is, 55.14%, as I talked about it. The people upstairs in the booth brought that in. Thank you very much for that. 30% of that is, I know it says 0 on your screen, but I'm looking right now, Associated Press says 30% of those numbers are reporting. I'd like to get that graphic updated, but Florida, once again, another one coming in. Super duper tight race. This is 1% between DeSantis and Gilliam, where once again we're seeing this teeter-tottering, back and forth. We thought that this blue wave was going to come right through, or this is what people are saying. That's not necessarily the case. Florida Senate right there, Scott over Nelson. That one's almost a done deal, but that's another one where we had all of those independents taking up a lot of votes. Where earlier in that race, there was a gap between those that were 100,000 votes, and where did those go? Taking a look at the Arizona Senate, Republicans continue to stay in the lead. That one's a fresh one. Remember, they're on the other side of the country. They have about a 3-hour time difference for us. Same with Montana. Sam, these are we're seeing like Democrat, Republican, but then there's these independents that are really throwing a lot of wrenches in the gears.
Yeah, and I think Drew said it perfectly in the fact that this is something that will continue to be more of a conversation, and I think more and more people are starting to realize, hey, there is a third, fourth, fifth option, and the obstacle is always going to be financially. You're always, again, with these big parties being able to fund, that's always going to be the big challenge. But again, this has been an election of firsts. You have, the first Native American, you have the first Muslim woman, and you potentially had the first African-American woman as governor. And, again, Drew, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but it's a good sign for the fact that, again, you're seeing this country become a little bit more progressive, and the change in politics is only going to continue.
Definitely, yeah, and that's the one thing that I think that I'd caution Republicans about, is that they need to become a little bit more socially progressive too. The Libertarians have already done it. We were actually the first party to advocate for the legalization of gay marriage, and that was like back in like the 70s and 80s, way long before anybody ever got on board to do it. But yeah, I think that the Republicans need to realize that if they don't change their way of thinking, that their members are slowly going to die off. And then there's going to be definitely this just gigantic conglomerate of a Democratic Party. So, yeah, it's something they need to look out for.
Of course, and I know upstairs are telling us to go to commercial, but real quick, just to let this sink in over the commercial break. Taking a look at Angus King, he is the representative from Maine. I don't know if we can bring that graphic back in with the results right now, where he's over 110,000 votes, 30% of the voters reporting. He did affiliate with the Democratic Party before 1993, but since 1993, he has been registered as an independent. He served as the junior senator in Maine. He was governor in Maine. So this is something that we're seeing. He's moving up the ladder, and you can see he's moving up in votes right there on your screen. You saw that. So we're going to have all that and more coming up right after the break. Stay right here. SCJ Election Night on RMU-TV, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll be right back.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to the RMU-TV SCJ election night coverage. Gage Goulding, Sam Anthony. We're going to go right to what we have in Pennsylvania, what we already saw in Pennsylvania. We're going to get that graphic up on the screen for you. There it is, Connor Lamb taking it over Keith Rothfuss. Once again, that is a big victory for Lamb. 2 incumbents, the only race in Pennsylvania that had 2 incumbents. Connor Lamb coming out on top. You can see that there. He's the projected winner, and those numbers are going to continue to go up throughout the night as those precincts continue to report. That is the old PA 17 or PA 18, now the PA 17. Looking at PA 14, Reschenthaler, the Republican. Once again, we talked about flip-flopping, back and forth. Coming out on top of the PA 14, Reschenthaler with 57.88% of the votes, nearly 20% more than the Democrat candidate, which is obviously something that, it's weird for Pennsylvania because in the presidential election they voted red, which is crazy. So Sam, we got this one up here, the 44th State House District. Valerie Gatos, once again, another really close race, close calls here in Pennsylvania. Yeah, and Gatos actually announcing her candidacy when she first entered politics here at Robert Morris University. Imagine that. Yeah, imagine that is right. Holding a slight lead right now. Again, that's the only one in Pennsylvania that is yet, or the one that we're covering here right now on election night in Pennsylvania that has yet to be called. And again, a lot of these were called really early. We're looking at Tom Wolf here, and you're seeing the results becoming a little bit closer, but again, clearly in favor of Wolf keeping his position as governor of Pennsylvania. And same here, you're looking at Bob Casey once again, and really neither of those races close at all. I mean, if we're looking at this in the grand scheme of things, this was called at the very beginning of the night. Yeah, of course. And here's the other thing, and I'm just looking at a tweet that Mayor Bill Peduto, who's a Democrat, just put out right now. He says, quote, tomorrow's headline today, Democrats' women's suburbs change the face of power in Washington and state capitals. The blue wave is real. And here's one thing that was really surprising is we didn't talk about a lot was whether this Tree of Life synagogue mass shooting at Squirrel Hill that just happened, a little over 2 weeks ago, did it have a role here in these elections, which we saw locally were landslides, blue, landslides. But, in other areas of the country, we're seeing that ping pong effect that we kind of thought we were going to see. We saw that there was going to be back and forth, red and blue. So I'm not sure. I'm interested to see the analysis of this after this whole election comes to an end, whether that did play a role. Because, as we know, traditionally, Democrats are stronger on the gun control, where Republicans are more for that amendment right. They want that freedom. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. In one of those things that, like I said, we knew it was going to be close, and we saw that the Democrats had a slight lead when those polls leading up to the election. But Sam, I don't know if we expected within 15 minutes, and I can't get over that. That's incredible that we were already calling these races. And you point out the important issue of gun control, and it's interesting because Connor Lamb, who is again a Democrat who won. Actually, again, more of a center Democrat, not necessarily supporting gun control. He supports more background checks, but not necessarily gun control, which is, again, part of that conversation. But I'm going to take a step away from, these Pennsylvania races for a second, because a lot of these, again, already decided. A lot of races still going on, specifically on the West Coast, and we saw that Arizona race still very tight right there. And again, the important thing is while we have seen, Democrats have the House, Republicans have the Senate. We're going to see how tight this ends up being. And again, you're seeing it here, 0.5% right now on these votes, and still very early, votes continuing to roll in, but we're at about 1 million votes between the two candidates. And one that might be too close to call tonight is between Scott and Nelson in Florida, and that's one we've been following all night, Gage. Oh, of course. We've been watching that all night. We've been closely covering that one. That was that exact race where there was a separation earlier in this evening, that there was 100,000 vote difference between them, and we could see it's still very close to that. And once again, those 4 independent candidates racking up those votes. That is something that we've seen all night. We're continuing to see, and I know I keep on repeating, so at home, I apologize, but going back to Maine Angus King right
really
now.
On that one.
120,000 votes. He has over 54% of the votes. This is something that no, I don't think any of us expected. Excuse me, Drew Miller over there. I know he's happy. He's smiling. This is something that we're going to wake up tomorrow, and history might be made. We might be looking at something that is massive. Looking once again, that graphic up on the screen. It's a little bit lagged, but like I said, 120,000 votes for Angus King. Now he's a 74-year-old candidate. He's from Virginia. He's now in Maine. Previous office, he was the governor of Maine from 1995 to 2003. 5 kids, obviously a family man, and he is really pulling through for Maine, something that I don't know if anybody expected. And that's an incredible race, and we're going to cover that in detail, of course.
Yeah, and again, you talk about takeaways from this entire midterm election, and for me, Gage, it would be the fact that there's a lot of firsts. You're seeing, not necessarily a first in terms of independent candidates, but a first in Maine. And Drew Miller talked about that as Maine being one of those states that was more likely to have that. And again, first Native American, first Muslim woman. It's an exciting time to be in the United States in terms of this election and in terms of politics, because you're seeing more people being involved of all different cultures, and something that again is a description of America as a melting pot, and you're starting to see that more in American politics.
Of course, and one great takeaway that I think we're seeing now that we're going to see, not just today, tomorrow, next week, but in many elections to come. This is something that is going to be permanent in politics in America. Social media, permanent in politics in America. Independent candidates, permanent in politics in America. We are seeing the next movement that we're going to see for the rest of our lives happen right now, right in front of us. Takeaway, if you guys do anything tonight at home, keep an eye on this Maine race with Angus King. I can't get enough of it. This independent party, we saw it last year with Drew Miller. Drew Miller was here tonight. For our whole staff here at RMU-TV SCJ Election Night coverage, for Sam Anthony, Greg Sutton, I'm Gage Goulding. Thank you for joining us.